And it looks like we're live.
Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
I love that intro.
I get like goosebumps. I get goosebumps every time I watch it,
I
man.
know, this is good.
You know?
Okay, now hold on a second. I'm not going to talk it up too terribly much because we might have to start paying some type of fees. What do you call those? Some type of fees that people get every time.
Royalty fees.
There you go, royalties. So, but no,
royalties to who?
Yeah,
it's
for
free
you.
music. It's free music. Oh no, man, no.
Okay, well,
I get my payment.
All right, well, whatever. We'll get. I don't know. Some of them might be even copywriting. I see that they're trying to. It doesn't matter. All right, so welcome everybody. It is a Sunday afternoon, and I'm glad everybody is here. You're giving up your football games where everybody's taking a knee before the game. I kind of gave up on that 2 years ago when they started doing that. Okay, so today.
Yeah,
today
us too. Yeah, we will not watch
disgusting?
that crap. Yeah, it is very disgusting. It's a game. You know, leave the politics over there and play the game.
I hate to admit this. I really do hate to admit this. But when our women's Olympic soccer team lost, I was actually kind of happy about it. And the reason why I was happy about it is because the captain of that team is this lady.
Liberal bitch.
Oh my gosh.
I'll say it. I'll say it. Liberal bitch.
Everything that woman stands for, I'm against. And to have her make it all political like she has, she just got what they deserve. Anyway, okay, so.
You're not the only one, Eric. You're not the only one. Most of America were cheering for the other teams.
Yep. Because they weren't representing America. They went over there the opposite, so.
Yeah, that's when you try to make it about yourself instead of about your country, then that's when you lose your fan base, and
Amen.
it's just sad when what they did with that. But anyway, okay, so what we're going to talk about today is Islam's history, or should we say non-history. I've been taking some classes with Veritas University. What happened here? It looks like my computers or my printers just finally deciding to print the slideshow. Thank you for doing that. 18 minutes after I push print. But I've been taking some classes with Dr. Jay Smith and Dr. Dan Janisic with Veritas, and I wanted to share some of the information that they have been teaching in these classes. And when I mean share, it's not like I'm plagiarizing it, but I kind of feel like Muhammad when I'm taking some of the things that they write and I'm putting it into my own little slideshow instead of taking like Jewish Talmudic verses and Gnostic sources and Syriac folklore and putting it into a Quran and saying it's divinely revealed. I'm not going to do that because I'm going to give attribution. I'm going to give attribution to the people who actually did the research on this and have developed these slideshows. So don't be thinking that it is all me and that I'm, this wizard of smart. I'm not. I'm just good at regurgitating dates, facts, kind of putting it into a story. I wanted to do two things before we got to that. Sorry. I wanted to say I'm kind of sorry for Thursday at the end of the show, because anytime somebody gets emotional, it makes other people uncomfortable, and that was not my intent. My intent
No, that was beautiful. That was beautiful.
Yeah,
that was beautiful because it was real.
Well, my intent was to solicit prayers for Jim. Jim is he's still hanging on, but I got another text this morning, and another friend of mine from that same school died this morning from COVID. It's just tough.
Well, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah, and I did after school programs with that guy for 6 years, 7 years. Anyway, I would ask that you keep Greg's family in your prayers. It's just okay. All right. What I wanted to do first off out of the chute this morning or this afternoon was talk about a video that I watched this morning on Hatun Tash's channel, the DCCI Ministries, Defend Christ, Critique Islam Ministries. And it was videos that were shot when she was at Speaker's Corner. I'm thinking it's today. And what I was out, I actually exercise. I was out on a walk this morning, not a daily walk. I don't exercise every day. Just don't think I'm some health freak or anything, but I do exercise when I can. And I'm out on this walk this morning, and I'm listening to this, and just listening to it, not watching it, but listening to it, got me to thinking about what would it really sound like if these demonic spirits that are out there, these people who are controlled by the spirit that are spiritually blinded, what would that sound like in real time? And as I'm listening to this, I'm thinking, that's exactly what it sounds like. This is exactly what we would expect for people. It was just almost like it would be in a Hollywood movie where, some Catholic priest is throwing holy water on people, and they're like, then they're panicking, and they're suffering from it. But what really got me to think, I was, if you've ever watched those National Geographic videos that they do on wildlife in like the Kalahari Desert, where you have those animals, they're tearing each other to pieces, and it reminded me of a pack of hyenas, is what it, because we ever hear that sound that they make, and they always travel in packs. They don't have the courage to do things on their own, and they have these, grotesque, when we think of, our canine friends, and then compare that to the hyenas, they got these grotesque configurations of, got that long neck and that just that unkept look. And that's what it sounded like. It sounded like a pack of demonically inspired hyenas responding to what Hatun was saying. So I want to play a couple clips of that, and you guys can tell me, if I'm wrong or right on this, but it was frightening. Okay, here we go.
You give your private part to Muhammad to offer you salvation. In the Bible, show me the Trinity. You don't know what that means?
Talking nonsense.
I'm just repeating.
Yeah, that there. Hold on, where was the other one? Here we are, 150.
I just got finished doing a short video on this junk today.
Yeah.
Where is that from?
Sahih Bukhari.
Show me.
Show me.
Muhammad. Shush. Your prophet is speaking. Your prophet is speaking.
Now you hear these? Are you listening to this? It sounds like a bunch of demons. You're shouting the truth at demons, and this is what they do in response. When you start telling the truth, they respond with, "Oh no, not the holy water," and they start shouting back at her. And what was the other one here? Okay, let me jump up to here. And this is what they eventually it all leads to. Look how great our our ignorance and our blinded spirituality does.
Islam is the
Fastest growing religion.
Allah.
Doesn't tell you that it's the fastest growing religion is because they impregnate young girls and they never have a chance to have successful careers themselves, and they're having 4 or 5 kids before they're even 20 years old. Allahu Akbar.
You see many people leaving Christianity to become
Yeah, forget the 23% apostasy rate that we have amongst Muslims in the West today too. Yeah, that was just, it just kind of, when you're not watching it, but you're listening to it. It sounds, I don't know, it just sounded much different than I guess what it looks like. Maybe I shouldn't have played the clip along with it. I don't know, but it just, when they start, let me get this off of here. Sorry. Okay, there we go. So when they start shouting and mocking and doing and making those noises, I don't know, it just really bothered me.
Yeah, it's hackling and just a bunch of hacklers. Mufti Mink says the largest defectors is Islam. The largest defectors is in Islam.
The religion with the greatest amount of people apostatizing from it today is Islam. That's one of the dirty little secrets. When you talk about, you're going to have growth because in Islamic countries where you're not allowed, oh, by the way, to apostatize, they're 3, 4 wives, and they're having 5, 6 kids from each one, marrying them when they're really young. And when you get married when you're really young, you're not having an opportunity to get an education. If you don't have an opportunity to get an education, you're not going to have any opportunities outside the home. So therefore, the only thing that you are going to be good at is having children. And that is so. I'm not. There's nothing wrong with having. I'm not trying to make that point. Don't get me wrong on that. Because being a mother is one of the most beautiful and most important things that you can do in this life. But when that is your only choice, and that you have no other purpose in life, and then you start claiming, well, Islam's the fastest growing religion, and you leave that fact out, that's a big problem.
And they're claiming those newborns. They're claiming the newborns are Muslims, and they're not.
Well, in order to be a Muslim, this is what they claim. And let's be perfectly honest. What they claim is that if your father was a Muslim, you're a Muslim. That's the way they look at it. And if you leave Islam, then you are.
Yeah, that's how the theft happens. It's called stealing a soul. It's called theft.
You know all about that.
Oh yes, sir, I do, very much so.
Okay, let's move on to the topic of today. Does anybody have anything else that they wanted to add to that? You're all kind of quiet today. That makes me a little nervous. Especially Isa. Isa normally has like 100 things to say about these type of things, but that's okay. We're not going to bother him with putting him on the spot or calling him out or anything like that. Are we? No response.
I will all the time. I love to hear him, and especially DL. I miss this dude, man.
Yeah, I know.
That's just my target is him, man. He's
giving
like
us
a drop of gold every time he talks.
Giving us the silent treatment. Maybe if I put him on the payroll.
Oh, I'm listening. I'm here. I'm listening.
What should you pay?
Okay, 3 of you talked at one time, and that's just that's beautiful. I heard Isa was listening, and then I heard DL say something that I'm sure it was. What was it, DL?
A drop of gold?
A drop of gold?
Yes, drops of gold. When you talk, yes, like drops of wisdom.
Wow.
Yes, sir. I have listened.
Okay, it isn't like we're putting the bar too high.
And have been enriched. Oh, no, I'm not calling him God.
No, I'm saying.
I'm calling him a wise man.
Okay, now everything that he says from here on out, he's going to be thinking, he goes, okay, does this meet that standard that was just said for?
Exactly. Exactly.
No, you just keep on being you, buddy.
Right. Okay, so as you can see, I'm not taking credit for this. This course that I'm taking is from Dr. Dan Janicek. Now I got 2 of his books. I think he's written 3, but I got 2 of them.
I just bought that book on Kindle last week.
On which one?
The Lost Islamic History. Is that the one I'm saying on the?
No, that's not from Dan Janicek. That was just a picture I just threw up there.
Okay. Well,
Sorry.
I have that book. I bought it last week.
Really? Well, maybe I ought to write that. Let me see, Lost Islamic History. And have you gotten into it yet?
Not yet.
Okay. Yeah, because a lot of these things that I'm going to be bringing up tonight should be something that really opens our eyes to the history of Islam. Because when we start talking about the history of Christianity, we can talk about something that occurred in the full light of history, of recorded human history, and we could talk about all, not just what we learn from Christianity from the Bible, but what we learn from Christianity, other documents, other sources, and what we learn from Christianity from archaeology and geography. And when we start putting it all together, when we read the New Testament, it makes full sense in light of history when we do history. The same cannot be said about Islam. It cannot be said. The same cannot be said about the Quran. The same cannot be said about Muhammad, and the same thing cannot be said about Mecca, because all of that is shrouded outside of the light of history. So when we look at the courses that I've taken with these guys, 503 was about what is all that dinging noise going? This is the third one I've taken with these guys, and the slideshow that I'm going to be going through today is from Dan, and Jay does a lot of contributing to it, especially when you look at, and this is somebody, I think it was Dr. Critical Thinker there, wanted to know what I was talking about. I've uploaded a lot of these slideshows and the video streams, the video recordings of these classes that we take to my Google Drive. And then if I give you access to the Google Drive, you can go there and then download those. But I'm getting to a point where my Google Drive, you're only given 15 gigabytes for each account. So my Google Drive is getting a little full. I'm at like 86%. I got a warning the other day to go ahead and, what is this? Show me the Mecca. I like that quote. Show me the money from Jerry Maguire. Show me the Mecca. I like that. Very good. So get with me after the show, and we'll get you hooked up if you're not already connected to that Google Drive. Okay, let's see here. So when we look at the latest developments, the latest information that will come in about supporting or not supporting the historicity of Islam, we can look at things that are occurring in forensic science, archaeology, primary source documents, and other sources from the first century itself. So when we look at the traditional Islamic view, it's really not lining up with what we would call the standard Islamic narrative, because the standard Islamic narrative basically says that 20 years after Muhammad's death, all the Quran was fully written down and disseminated by which guy was Uthman, is who it was. And now when we look at this other new information that is coming in, it really turns this whole thing upside down. And Muslims are going to have to, in order to maintain any type of credibility. Oops, I'm sorry. I'm not showing my screen here. Sorry about that. Let me go back. Doggone you, Kafir. There we go. All right. So yeah, sorry about that. And I even had one slide before that. My goodness. I need to pay closer attention. If I'm talking about what's on this, you guys wouldn't know. My fault. Okay, so what I was saying is that when we look at Quran, Mecca, and Muhammad today, and we look at the evidence that is coming in, the standard Islamic narrative, what they call the sin, kind of a appropriate description, the sin is not lining up with what we find today, with the evidence that's coming in. Because when we look at when we talk about Muhammad, it's looking like, and I'm not fully sold on this, but if you read Robert Spencer's book, I can't remember not the truth about Muhammad. It's cited here. When you read that book,
Does Muhammad exist?
yeah, there you go. Did Muhammad exist? When you read that book, it really causes some doubt there. But I'm still not 100% with that. But then again, there's a lot of other things that we do believe that have much, 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 much less support than Muhammad, and we still believe them. And then when we look at the Quran, in light of history, is not making sense that it was written down, given to Muhammad. As a matter of fact, the word Quran, I think it's in the slideshow. If you translate it back to the Syriac or the Aramaic, it doesn't mean to recite. It means something else, and we'll get to that. And then at the place Mecca has no history for it in the 7th century, which is, when you take away that foundational location, when we start talking about the geography of the Bible, we can go to these places and we can clearly see, what they're talking about as far as the geography is concerned. We can see where it lines up almost perfectly. Uh-oh. Somebody took themselves off mute. Which is okay.
I was just going to say, Eric, that's one of the primary reasons that you can't find any books on Quranic archaeology.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Where are those books? I have a book on biblical archaeology here someplace. I
have about 25 books on biblical archaeology, and I cannot find one. I can't find one on Quranic archaeology.
Hold on. Let's just do a quick Google search. Hold on. Quranic archaeology. Quranic archaeology. Okay. Is Oxford Quranic archaeology JSTOR. Quran's archaeological evidence.
Well, they found the footprint of Abraham, so there's that.
Wasn't it like a size 83 shoe or something, if I'm not mistaken? Or no, that was Adam. I'm sorry. I got that wrong. Why is there no archaeological evidence to prove the Quran? Quranic archaeology, YouTube. So I guess there are some things out there, but I would, well, hold on. If we would open that book, hold on. Let me just.
Well, JSTOR is it's not really a book. It's
It's the clearinghouse for articles, right?
It's just an article, and you can find those, but going to Kindle or something, you can't find.
Yeah, I would like to look at their bibliographies and see what type of sources outside of Islamic sources.
None.
They have.
Not
Right,
a single
outside. Yeah,
Right.
they mostly killed all of them.
Let's see, archaeological evidence. Well, this is from Flander. Okay, well, no wonder that's Jay's site. But yeah, if you look, there isn't any archaeological evidence supporting a 7th century Mecca. There's nothing there. Dan Gibson, who's done the Quranic geography and early Islamic Qibla books, and he has another book out. I can't remember what the name is off the top of my head. But
The Nabatean book.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I've got
Right,
that one.
exactly.
Mhm.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah.
In those books, what he does is he, of course, shows where the Qiblas are not facing the right direction. He shows where the geography that is described in the Quran does not line up with what we find in Mecca today. And when we look at Mecca today, it is essentially the same Mecca geographically as it was in the 7th century. So these things that it describes, they simply don't line up. But he went to a conference. I'm not sure how long ago he mentioned this, but he went to a conference and he said that the earliest archaeological evidence supporting Mecca dates back to the period of the Ottomans during the time of the Crusades. Now that's pretty pathetic. That's the Crusades were what, 1100 to
I think
about 1300.
1095.
What's that?
I think they started like in 1095.
1095, right? By the time they get there, though, it's It's 1099. So okay, we'll just to keep it round.
Yeah, we'll round it up
1100,
to 1100s.
Right. So you got about 300-year period there of. Thank you, Connie. The Nabateans. Yeah.
Hey, a question for you, since you mentioned Dan Gibson and his Quranic geography. Did you know he's got a newer book from 2017 that deals with the Qiblas? It happens to be called The Early Islamic Qiblas, which I think came out in 2017.
This one?
Hold on a second. Let me see, because I'm looking at it right now. Yeah, that's it. Okay, you got it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's I knew there was 3 of them. I knew he had 3 books out there. I didn't.
You and your physical books, me and my PDFs.
I know. I'm old school. I can't, and I don't know how kids do it today with scrolling through. I was out there watching my grandson. He's 8 years old, and he's scrolling through this computer, and he's going choo 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 ding 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 ding. I'm like, dude, slow down. I cannot keep. And he's only 8. It's almost scary how adaptive. Well, I mean, if you grow up on it and that's what you're used to, I guess. It just comes naturally. But anyway, okay. So back to this, back to the slideshow. Let me jump right back to it here. Okay. So when we look at the 3 things, the Muhammad, we look at the Quran, and we look at the place. The evidence for these three things is nowhere near conclusive. And when you compare that, what we say is, okay, if we look at the man, we look at Jesus Christ, how much evidence do we have for Jesus Christ? We have all kinds of extra biblical evidence that supports the existence of Christ. We have all kinds of writings. Historians at that time wrote of him. We have the early church fathers, which were contemporaneous with the eyewitnesses. So we have all of those writings. When we look at the book, we have very early fragments of the New Testament, but we also have a clear chain of narration of written material, not oral material, but written material that dates back to the late 1st century, early 2nd century. When you start looking at people like Clement of Rome, or you start people looking at Polycarp, or what's that?
Josephus, Tacitus, Suetonius.
Ignatius.
Right. Yeah, we have the extra biblical ones, but I was just referring to the people who were contemporaneous with the apostles themselves. Attest to what we find in the book itself. So when we start talking about the book,
Clement of Rome, is it Polycarp? I can't remember. This one's all
Ignatius, and Papias. Those are the 4 that were from that date. I believe all 4 of them date to the 1st century. I might be wrong on that, but anyway. And then the place, we have all kinds of archaeology and written material attesting to the places that were supposed to have existed at the time of Christ. We don't have that with the city of Mecca. So and when you compare the 2 of them, it's just like apples and oranges. There's actually apples and pumpkins. There's just no comparison. And when we look, okay, this was Robert Spencer's Did Muhammad Exist? Yeah, thank you, Connie. The more one looks at the origins of Islam, the one less sees. And this is so very true. So let's look at the traditional account. I've run through this before, so I'm going to, forgive me if I go too fast. If you want the slideshow, email me and I'll send it to you. All right, so the life of Muhammad was supposedly lived out in the full light of history. He's supposed to be this model of moral conduct. And I've spent too much time on it, but to think that he was any model of conduct at all is just repugnant to me. And this is what drives this rage when you bring these things up to Muslims. It creates this visceral hatred and towards you for even describing Muhammad outside of this light of being this perfect man. So when you say that he did X, Y, and Z, he had people murdered, the thing with Aisha, the thing with his son's ex-wife, and all these other things that he had done to people, not a model. But this is the standard Islamic narrative. People believe that the Quran was revealed within 20 years, or written down anyway within 20 years, and that Islam had been a religion that was fully completed or fully formed by the time that Muhammad died, and that the Arabs at the time were pagan, all completely pagan, and that it was up to Islam to convert them, which is not true. So in order for, and here's one of the foundational things, folks, follow this bouncing ball here, because if you can follow this bouncing ball, people don't even get out of the gate as far as defending Islam. And that deals with the city of Mecca itself. Mecca has no water. In the middle of a desert. It gets to be 130 degrees. I don't know if any of you have ever been in 130-degree weather. It's hot. It's a very unpleasant place to be. Nobody is going to want to live there, especially in the 6th century and 7th century. And if you look at Mecca today, everything that supports Mecca does not come from Mecca. It comes from outside of Mecca. It has to be brought to Mecca, mainly water. You have, in order for human beings to, I mean, come on, think about this. In order for human beings to live, you need to have at least some water. I'm not sure what the minimum amount is, but you have to have it each and every single day of your life. If you don't, you'll be dead. You're going to die. And if Mecca didn't have any water except for the Zamzam well, which couldn't support maybe a platoon of soldiers, there's a problem. And if you don't have any water, what else don't you have? You don't have any vegetation. You don't have any vegetation, guess what? You don't eat, because plants don't grow without water. You don't have vegetation to eat, then you don't have people. If you, I mean, it's real easy. I mean, if you don't have
let
water,
alone a religion,
well,
let alone a start of a religion.
I think that's the next one. The next one, that where you wouldn't have a civilization of people to practice a religion. So if you don't have any water, you don't have any vegetation, you don't have any vegetation, you don't have any people, you don't have any people, you don't have a civilization. And if you don't have a civilization, you don't have a city. So this idea that Mecca existed since the time of Adam and Eve is just simply silly. To think that it existed at the time of Abraham, with no archaeological evidence for it today, is simply silly. If it existed at any other time where the prophets were supposedly coming to Mecca to go on their Hajj, there's nothing there. There's zero there supporting the city of Mecca. So let's look at how accurate this traditional view is. Let's look at Muhammad. He's supposed to be born 570, died 632. What was it the other night? I think it was who is this? I'm trying to think what your name is today. Dr. Critical Thinker. Dr. Critical Thinker. Did we mention this the other night on your live stream about elephants in Mecca? Was your live stream, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was chapter 105 about the War of the Elephants.
Okay.
And where are their bones if there's some archaeology findings? Where's their bones at?
How many gallons of water did you say that elephants had to have each day to
I think it was probably about 40 gallons.
40 gallons. Okay.
Now,
and then how much hay?
Food? Well, it depends on the source. My source said about 300 plus pounds of vegetation per day.
For one elephant.
Yeah, just one elephant.
Yeah, just for one elephant.
Yeah.
What about their camels?
About 40
beloved camels.
liters. Camels? Well, I mean, a camel would probably eat less, and a camel could go days without water. But I have to be honest.
Because they fill up their little tanks.
Right. I have to give credit to the Muslim where I got this from. And I've been promoting his book, and I think he might come on my show, or maybe he might even come here. And that book is very good. I've been reading it, and it's very interesting.
Which book is that? Because I think I ordered one. I think I ordered that book. Is that the one that had the website and has like 18 videos on it?
Yeah, probably. It's
okay. Yeah, I think I ordered that this week, and I'm because I started scanning through the. Anyway, I think it'd be a good book. All right. Where was I? Oh, we were talking. Okay, Muhammad in 570. So the standard view is that Muhammad lived between 570 and 632.
Do you want to give us that picture again? Because we can't see it.
Sorry, doggone you, Catherine.
Okay.
All right.
I'm your director.
Okay. I appreciate that. So here you have and then what was it, like or 628, there's this war, and he kills this woman's family, her brothers, her husband, her father, and then she offers to cook a sheep for Muhammad, and he says, "Sounds like a good idea." And then they got poisoned. That's okay? That is just so hilarious that anybody would think that you would think, okay, yeah, we just got done killing your husband, we just got done killing your dad, we just got done killing all your brothers and your cousins and nieces and all these people, and you want to cook us a meal? Yeah, we're hungry. Okay, that sounds like a great idea.
But the worst thing is, most of those stories are by the Abbasids. They're later history anyway. So it doesn't even.
Oh, we're getting to that
like
on this
the
timeline.
Hadiths.
We're getting to it right now.
We're just too smart, Eric. You've got smart students.
I know. You guys. Okay, let me get to my next slide here. Okay, all right. So we got to Muhammad. So when we look at the traditional view, he's born in 570, 595. He marries Khadijah. 610, he gets his first revelation. 622, he makes Hijrah to Mecca, or I'm sorry, to Medina from Mecca. 630, he conquers Mecca, and then he dies in 632 from a mysterious illness we call poisoning. Okay, so let's look at these this traditional account that we get from these dates, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see it here, but I just pretty much recited all of them. This is kind of a duplicate slide that I threw in there from Jay's presentation, but the one that I wanted you to look at here is what happened right after him, because you have the first four caliphs: Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali. Abu Bakr is the one that actually only dies a natural death, which is kind of odd. But and I think he took a bath and went outside, and it was too cold, and he got sick, and he was dead within a day. And then Umar is killed by some psychopath. Uthman is killed by a group of his followers because he did something. I can't remember exactly what he did. Does anybody remember that off the top of your head? What Uthman did? He made a decision.
I was just reading about that in that book, the Islam, the Honest Truth. I think Aisha didn't like him, and then the Muslims were actually pissed off what he was doing with that whole Quran, because he was going against the earlier companions of Muhammad that had helped with the transcribing his revelation, like Ibn Masud, and I can't remember what the other guy's name. So apparently there was they kind of considered Uthman as what we would call like a heretic. So they made plans, and they they offed him.
Yeah, that's right, because they were supposed to kill Marawiyah, they were supposed to kill Uthman, and they were supposed to kill Ibn Abbas, I think, at that time. And the other two were not where they were supposed to be.
There's also the situation with Marwan. Marwan was his governor that he put in Egypt, and he had gotten there was flack because the people in Egypt
were not happy with Marwan. Was it Marwan or Marwan? Was it the same guy?
Muawiyah, yeah.
Okay.
I think it was Marwan who was the governor there, but he was the governor, and then basically what happened was he Muawiyah, that's where you mean, yeah, Muawiyah. Marwan basically was not being a very good leader there. That's one narrative, and the people there were very upset, and there was like miscommunication with letters and stuff like that. There was a letter that was supposed to go there, then the letter got sabotaged, and the people got very upset and felt that their voices weren't heard. Then they basically sent a troop to go to his house, and the grandsons of the Prophet of Islam, Hassan and Hussein, were guarding his house, but they were able to infiltrate through another means. And I think he was almost like 80. He was very old. He had lived a long life, but I think that's usually the narrative that I'm familiar with.
They killed him when he was praying or something on those lines, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
Okay, hold on, Dominic. Okay, never mind. There we go. Yeah, I saw you went out and you came back in.
Yeah, my connection was bad, I think.
Okay, and Ali, again, same thing. He's killed. and both of his sons, I mean, the grandsons of Muhammad, were murdered by Muslims, which calls into question is, well, I thought this was supposed to be a religion of peace. Okay, so let's look at the emergence, the traditions. So Muhammad's 570, revealed 610. I thought 622 is when the Hijra. There we go. The Hijra is 622. He conquers Mecca in 630, and then he dies in 632. So when you look at his life, it's about, he lives to be 62 years old. Abu Bakr reigns for 2 years, then he dies. Umar reigns for 10 years and he's killed. Uthman reigns for, 12 years and then he's killed. And then the Quran, of course, is compiled in 652. Doggone it. Come on, you guys. Let me go back. I don't have this up here. I'm shouting out these dates. You got to be able to say, what is he talking about? Okay. Here is these dates for you. Here are these dates. I'm sorry. So 62 years is his life. Then you have Bakr. Then you have Umar. Then you have Uthman. And then the Quran is compiled under Uthman. And then Ali is 4 years. It was at 656 to 661. And then we look at the classical counts. Where were these classical counts of Islam drafted? So the first account, the Sirah, the biography, is thought to have been composed by Ibn Ishaq about 130 years after the death of Muhammad. And then we don't have anything from Ibn Ishaq. We have the edited version of this by Ibn Hisham. Now look at the date of that. It's 833. Ibn Hisham is an 833. You're going to write a biography about somebody, and it's supposed to be an authentic biography. And that biography isn't dated until 200 years after the death of the person. And you're going to count that as a trustworthy document?
I don't believe that the 675 one by Ibn Ishaq. Me personally, I think that's just a story. Because there's nothing.
Ishaq is a fabricated character, or the story that he wrote?
Well, the whole thing that he did the first Sirah, I don't buy that, because there's not a sliver of evidence to it, and we all know that Islam is kind of like a religion that everything gets redacted.
Sure. Yep. That's the whole point. Everything is redacted. Back to that. I'm seeing if they have anything. I don't have time to look, but I have the biography. And I tell you what, if you are like wide awake and it's 11 o'clock at night and you need to go to sleep, pick this Hamajama up and start reading for comprehension, and you will be out like a light. It is the bone. Anyway, okay, let's get back to what we were doing here.
Quran,
okay, and then no, actually, reading the Quran, my humble opinion, is like penance. It just makes your stomach hurt reading this. You're like, this is supposed to be somebody's holy book? Because there's nothing. I mean, to me, reading that, you got maybe 7, 8, 10 verses max, and then all of a sudden something completely different comes in there, and there's no rhyme or reason. Now, if it was recited to Muhammad, Uthman would probably, I would say that we would have to consider him the worst editor in the history of mankind.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, am I right on? Do you guys have do you guys have the same problems with it?
The book of Proverbs has more context than the Quran.
The book of Proverbs at least has finished sentences, which is
well, what they're going to point out, what Dr. Janicek points out in this slideshow, is that 1 out of every 5 sentences in the Quran is incoherent. And if you take it, well, we'll get to that. I need to get going. Okay.
However, Surah 12 does have a beginning, a middle, and an ending context.
And what is it about?
Joseph.
Oh. Oh, was that the one that says that he was sold for coins, dirhams?
Yes.
That didn't exist at the time?
An anachronism. Yes.
One of those anachronisms that we find. Yeah. That guy.
I was about to say that didn't exist at that time.
I didn't hear that. What was that?
The money, the dirham didn't even exist at that time.
Well, that isn't just dirhams didn't exist at the time. Coins themselves did not exist at the time, and it says we counted them out for him.
Worse, okay.
Yeah, it's just. But hey, this is don't question it.
Eric, just to let you know, there's a lot of echo.
Yes, sir.
Is it coming from me?
Not you, but everybody else that talks.
Okay. All right. If you are going to, let me do this. Hold on. Mute screen audio. Let me try that. There. Does that work better?
Yes. Test.
That's better. Yes.
All right. Okay. All right. Back to where we were. So when we looked at the biography of Muhammad, 200 years after the guy dies, and you're going to believe it. Sorry. Then when we look at the Hadith, Al-Bukhari, written. Now look at the date of this guy. Now this guy is supposed to be recording accurately with the science of the Hadith, and we find the science of the Hadith, how the Hadith had been the accurate Hadith, the Sahih Hadith, had been you had to have this certain type of chain of narrations, and they had to be certain type of people that were reputable. And where did they find this science and this process? We find it in the Hadith. So there, you talk about circular in nature itself. It's right there. And that is 240 years after the death of Muhammad. And then you look at the Tasfir, the Takrith, the history and the commentary with Tabari. That's 300 years, almost 300 years after the death of Muhammad. So the dates should be troubling to anybody that does history, that knows anything about history at all. What the heck did just happen to me here? I did not mean to do that. I am sorry.
We're on your right-hand side as we see the screen.
I know. I'm trying to figure out what.
There you go.
Wow. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's go to the next one. The next slide. This is okay. That's all part of the standard Islamic narrative. Now let's look at the dates for the traditions. Let's just go through these dates once again, so even a 2-year-old can figure this out. So you got Ibn Ishaq writing over 100 years after the death of Muhammad, and that says Ibn Hisham. So that is his Sirah. That is over 200 years after his death. And then let's see here, the Hadith, the sayings. That's Bukhari. That's out to 870. That's way out there. Muslim is 5 years after Bukhari. Tamiri is 9 years after Muslim. Ibn Majah is 3. You guys can do the math and figure this out. Abu Dawood, all of these people that are supposed to be Sahih collectors or collectors of the narrations are. Look how far out. That's 250 years after his death. And then the commentaries of Muhammad. You look at Tabari. That's 923. What happened there? Let me get back. There we go. So that is, what is that? That's almost 300 years after the fact. Now, when you compare this, let's do the dynasties, or not the dynasties. Well, yeah, the dynasties of the people who lived after Muhammad. Al-Malik, Abd al-Malik, that's 692. 691 is when the Dome of the Rock. This is the guy that was the caliph during the time the Dome of the Rock was built. And then you have the Abbasids coming in. Now, let's compare this to George Washington. George Washington. We all know George Washington. George Washington fought in the French and Indian War, and George Washington, the first general.
Our first president.
Yeah, known as the father of our country. All these things about George Washington. Okay, we know all these things because we didn't write them down. Everybody just talked about it for 200 years. The first reference to Washington would be 1839. If we were to have anything in writing about George Washington, it wouldn't come until 1839. Would you believe anything about George Washington if it was all oral history up until 1839?
No.
No. But that's just the first writing of Washington. If we were to look at his biography would not have been penned until Carter became president, for crying out loud.
Oh, geez.
You say that about
Muslims
Carter
wake up.
Yeah, do you
Muslims wake up, geez.
Okay, are you saying that about Jimmy Carter, or are you talking about the time span there?
Jimmy Carter.
Yeah.
They have a timestamp.
Yeah. A little of both. You know? So that's
Yes.
200 years. We don't get a biography about George Washington until 200 years after his life. And when we look at the Hadith, the things that he said, the speeches that he had made, the notes that he had taken, I mean, this guy was when we talk about the Constitutional Convention, he was the president of the Constitutional Convention. He selected who got to speak and who didn't, what people were able to submit and what ideas they were not. He was the man that was, I don't say, he's not the father of the Constitution, that's James Madison, but he was the guy that basically ran the convention. But we wouldn't know anything about him until Obama was leaving the White House, for crying out loud. And we're supposed to believe that. And then this history, the history is, that wouldn't be written down about Washington until my grandson becomes president here in a couple years. Okay.
Wow,
so
that really puts that in perspective. My goodness.
I mean, if you look at George Washington and you compare that to what we know about Muhammad, and also the reliability of those writings, you have no way to provide any type of, what's the word I'm looking at, any type of
credibility.
Right. We don't have any. Yeah, there's no way to determine the credibility of these writings. How do we know? Well, we have to take these guys' words for it. Well, why do we know? Why do we have to take the word from these guys? Well, because the Hadith say that they were dependable. Well, why? How do we know they're dependable? Because the Hadith said so. It's circular. It's like this, this game of, chasing your tail. Is what it is. It's disgusting.
So Eric, a quick point here, if I could just jump in very quickly.
Yes, sir.
I was always of the opinion that what you're saying is true. Not seeing all of this detail that you're presenting for us now. I was always of the impression that Muhammad was a real person, but he was a charlatan. He was a guy after power, after women, and prestige. And money.
Money. Yep.
That's what he was after. But he was a charlatan. Now, a lot of legends built up around this guy. And when I was in the 7th grade, the teacher allowed us to do this exercise with the Chinese connection, it was called, or something like that, where one thing was taught to one student at the top of the class, and then they had to do, repeat the message to the next person behind them until it got to the last person at the back of the class. And
yeah, we did that in the 1st grade also.
So it was completely different. So I'm saying that this so-called chain of narrations in Islam is just like that, where there's a lot of legends and fairy tales that built around this guy. I believe that he did say some of this garbage. I really believe he did, but a lot of it is fluff that was built up around him. Legends around someone who, if everyone met him, you would say, why would someone think this guy is a prophet? So can someone tell me if I'm wrong? Why would
the thing is we don't have no facts that he even said anything. So that's the deal. There's no facts behind it.
But the big problem is the Abbasid Umayyad problem, because essentially all the stories are from the Abbasid period, and they destroyed everything from the Umayyad period, which was supposedly before the time of Muhammad. So everything from the time that we know, all this standard Islamic narrative comes from the Abbasid period. So it's like literally just, so you can't believe anything that the Abbasids say. So
well, what I would add to that is, and I don't want to, it's Chinese whispers, yeah. Thank you, XYZ, or the telephone game, yeah. People at that time had a much better ability at memorizing facts, memorizing sayings, memorizing what what the content of people's speeches, how they were given, with a great amount of accuracy. And the reason is because they didn't have access to the written word as much as, because if we look at everything today is written down. We have the written word. We don't have to memorize anything today if we don't want to. We can just go ahead and just, as long as you know how to access the information, you don't have to memorize it. Well, at that time, you had to memorize it. So
that's actually considered white supremacy, the written word. Seriously, but no, I just wanted to chime in. I'm not making that up. But I just want to chime in on this.
White supremacy to them.
Yeah. Well,
just
anyway,
to make people look bad.
I just wanted to chime in on a few things. I was listening on the mobile there. So a couple things. Well, first of all, getting back to what you guys were just talking about just right now. Yeah, it is true that people did have a greater memory back then because, like you said, didn't have the written word, didn't have the internet, didn't have TV, didn't have radio, didn't have these all other external modes of input. So you only had your brain and you had to memorize stuff. Well, here's the thing, okay? There are civilizations out there, empires almost, that have come and gone and left no written word. And we know nothing about them. For instance, the Tuscanies, right? Is that what I'm thinking about? The pre-Romans. Who was there before Romans? What were they called? The Tuscans. The Etruscans, yeah. Now they are finding some written written scribbles in engravings in certain parts that they date to the Etruscans, but it's hard to decipher them. We had there are certain Chinese, not Chinese empires, but in Mongolia and stuff that predated the Chinese or on that hinterland. Okay, that they had a thriving society, but they left no written word, as far as we can tell. We know nothing about them. Okay, and you go, I think is it the Incas or the Mayans? Well, now we have an idea because we have the books that the Franciscan friar or whatever actually did translate. They re-examined them, but for a long time we had no way to decipher. Even though they left a written word, we had no way to decipher it. The Egyptians, we had no way to decipher. We had nothing. We knew nothing about ancient Egypt society. Okay, until that French guy translated the Rosetta Stone. And think about it. If that stone hadn't been left, we would know absolutely nothing about the largest, the most ancient, the most long-standing empire in the world. We would know absolutely nothing about them, except they built pyramids and they built all these monuments and stuff, and that would have been it. Okay? So when Muslims come in and say to us, that, well, we have the Quran, it's perfectly preserved in our memory. No, it's not. The only reason it's perfectly preserved in your memory, the whole point of it, okay, of them writing it down is because they weren't perfectly preserving it in their memory. Because fights were breaking out. And let's face it, when Muslims fight over the Quran, people die. Okay? You know what I mean?
Also, which one did they memorize?
Exactly.
That's another question. Which one did they memorize? The Hafs? Did they remember the Walsh? Did they? Did they memorize the Tofka copy? Did they memorize the there's no way to actually know which Quran they actually memorized, and also the actual aspect of the story, because even back then, I mean, in the 17th century or just the 7th century, there was ways to write stuff down. There was stuff. You had the Alexandria Library, which was burnt down. So essentially, there was.
And who was it burnt down by, Dominic?
Our friends, the Muslims. But the thing
Omar. It was Omar. Omar burnt down in Alexandria, Egypt.
No. Hold on. The library was burnt down many times. The first time it was burnt down was because of Julius Caesar. Remember, he burnt it. Okay, he burnt the whole city because he burnt the ships. We didn't specifically burn the library. He burnt his ship so his men couldn't run away. Then after that, no, it's been burnt down many times. But yes, you are right. The last time it was burnt down, I believe, was by Omar.
Yeah. So I accept.
So we've actually got stuff like papyrus, and we've got like fragments from.
So I accept that these were oral societies. I accept that. But as oral societies, you're also admitting that these people were illiterate in Arabia. This is a backwater place. Please, let's remember, this was not like the center of human civilization. It was,
Right.
it was not.
Right.
We just
There's
have to
no
admit-
water there. That's you missed. I don't know if you saw the first part of the show, George, but I was saying there's no water. There's no water. There's no vegetation. There's no vegetation. There's no people. Nobody wants to go.
Right,
Hold on a second here. Hold on.
One last point. Not only were they illiterate, and these were not the brightest set of people in the world, they were superstitious. And you see it coming out in the Quran and in the Hadith. A lot of these scary stories, these fairy tale stories about jinns and some really weird stuff about the sun and the moon be prostrating before Allah. I mean, all these things are just clearly superstition, right? So please remember, it was a backwater place. It was not a place where there was a high level of intellectual thought, and where there were people who disagreed with Muhammad, he eliminated these people. Let's not mince words. So you're saying all the people had great memories. I'll accept that because they were oral societies, so people had to rely on their memory a lot more, but also remember the other side of the story.
Well, just to add on to that. Well, first of all, I do want to discuss, Eric, you said earlier when I was listening on the phone, that it gets up to 130 degrees Fahrenheit in Mecca, that there's no water. Well, don't you know that back then, just like, a 9-year-old girl back then was really 20 years old, don't you know that 130 degrees Fahrenheit was really like 80 degrees? And, and you didn't need as much, you only needed a few drops of water to live, for weeks and months, because everything was completely different right there. But no, so the reason why nobody cared about Arabia is because nobody wanted to go there. Nobody wanted to conquer it. The Romans, they went up to the border. The Persians, the same deal. They all went around it. If they had to go through it, they went on the outskirts of it. But nobody wanted to conquer that place because, well, they didn't know there was oil, and even if they did know there was oil, they didn't know what to do with it, so it didn't really matter. But you see what I'm saying? So nobody cared about it. The only reason for these Roman and Persian garrisons around the border was to keep these warring tribes from coming in and raiding your towns on the border, on the hinterland. Okay? And then once they started to withdraw those troops, that's when they started to expand. They overgrew their habitat. And I mean, seriously, that's why they came out. But yeah, archaeological evidence for Mecca. Now think about this for a second. I want to get back on this real quick. Think about this for a second. Why do we know so much about the Egyptians? Well, other than that, we deciphered their written code and everything, blah, blah, blah. And they left all these great monuments, and they were builders, and they left statues and all kinds of stuff. And everybody talked about throughout history because everybody knew they existed because they really did exist. And they had a vast empire for thousands of years, right? But why can we find all these bones and all these records? Because it's in an extremely arid place, just like the Arabian desert. So in other words, if this Mecca was predated civilization, it would be no problem finding all kinds of archaeological evidence because there's no water to dry to rust metal. There's no water to corrode papyrus. There's no water to destroy things. Okay, you see what I'm saying? So it just flabbergasts me. Well, in other words, what I'm saying is we should find stuff, but we don't. And what they do find is either post Arabian conquest, or maybe pre or post first century Christianity. The stuff that they do find, they find very little, from the time of from the time of David, from the time of even the prophets that came after David. There's nothing there because nobody wanted to be there. Yes, they found a 90-foot atom. I gotta tell you, did you guys know the story about that? I'll let you guys continue. I won't take a show, but this is a funny story with this. It involves Osama Abdullah. It is really funny, but if we got time at the end, I'll tell you the story. Go ahead, continue.
No, I want to hear the story. You brought it up. We got to hear the story now. We got to revisit it. I want to hear this.
Long time ago. I don't even know if you guys...
This is your fault. I'm going to make sure that she knows that this is her fault that she brought it up. But go ahead.
Okay. Long time ago, there was this Muslim apologist named Osama Abdullah. He was friends with Sami Zatari. They actually started this with Sam Shimon, the whole debate thing, pretty much online. Okay. And there were and Nadir Ahmed was part of this. This is the dude that Nadir Ahmed was threatening to beat up, or vice versa. I forgot what it was with his sheikh. Okay, it was Osama Abdullah. Okay, well anyway, Osama Abdullah ran this website. I don't even know if it's still up, but he ran this website in response to David Wood calling answering Muslims. It was answering answering Christian. I don't know. It was a response. He actually copied David Wood's total template, total website is what he did. I forgot what he named it. Anyway, it was Answering Christianity. What was the name of it? Anyway, or Answering Christians. Anyway, so there is this. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of them. I don't know if they're still around, but it's basically a Muslim, ex-Muslim atheist organization. It's called Faith Freedom Foundation or something like that, or Faith Freedom Institute, something like that. Well, they got together and they bought this domain, made it sound like a newspaper domain. This is before everybody was doing this. Okay. And they wrote this bogus article that archaeologists at Hebrew University, okay, had discovered 90-foot skeletal remains and had all these Photoshop pictures. You probably see them. You can go Google them right now. Okay, 90-foot Adam. Okay, all right, yeah, go search it on Google Images. I'm sure they're still out there. But 90-foot images, and they sent the link. They somehow made it so Osama Abdullah would discover it. And they had all this bogus information. Actually, all you had to do was call the number to Hebrew University. There was no professor there by that name. They made it up. There was no department of that university. They all made it up. In other words, he did no fact-checking whatsoever.
Wow.
Well, Osama Abdullah published it on his website, but other Muslim apologists picked it up with all the images. See, even the Jews, they admit that Abraham was 90 foot tall. They discovered a 90-foot man. Now, we don't know if this is really the remains of Abraham, but it still proves the Quran is true. And they ran with this for several months, and all of a sudden, Faith Freedom pulled the plug on it and just busted them out. It was totally hysterical. They were totally ashamed, except Osama Abdullah. He still had it up. Last time I checked, last time I was interacting with him was several years ago, but he still had it up. He still stood by it. He couldn't admit he was wrong. No, you gotta. It might not be out there. No, it's actual bones, or it's not like they're digging up a grave. I'll look it up. I'll find it for you. It's really funny.
Yeah,
Crazy,
you guys, go find the skeleton for a 90-foot Adam, Eric. Okay, I'll get right on that.
They've fallen into idolatry. That's all that they're, just to try to keep Islam going. They're falling into idolatry. Look, here's the footprints of Abraham. Look, here's Adam. Look, here's Eve. Here's John the Baptist's head. And, it's just like more idolatry as they go along. Come on, Muslims, wake up and come to God, please.
The thing is also, if you work out, if Hagar traveled to Mecca, would it be like 3 days, or it would take her a long time to? So with all the biblical account, it just makes sense. Like the travel times and the things like that make sense. But if
hold on, Dominic. If you're 90 foot tall, think about how long those steps are in between there. I'm just saying. But then again, we get back to how much water are you going to need to drink? How much food are you going to have to eat? You're going to be drinking as much as an elephant, I guess, if you're that tall.
But there's so many problems with the aspect of Islamic history. It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever at all. Like you're saying, like you have so many historical anachronisms. I can't say the word anachronisms. Such as like people that are in the wrong time period at the wrong time place, people at the wrong. Just that there's so much historical problems with the Quran. It's just unbelievable. It's like they must have known basic history. Kind of.
Well, when they say that, as we just mentioned earlier, that you have Joseph being sold into slavery for dirhams, a currency that did not exist until around the time of the Greek Empire, for coins that did not exist until I think it was like the 10th century. When you have a Samaritan helping Aaron build the golden calf at Mount Sinai, you're only off by 700 years there. When you talk about David wearing chainmail, you're only off by 500 years there, because that wasn't developed until the 5th century BC on a completely different continent. Forget that little fact. What are some of the other anachronisms? Oh, they have Mary, the mother of Jesus, being the sister of Aaron, the daughter of what's the dad's name?
Imran.
Imran. There we go. Imran. Right.
Oh,
thank you.
yeah.
Yeah.
The father of Imran.
So when you look at and those are just a couple of the anachronisms. There are other anachronisms in there, but those are just
there's so many
the ones
mistakes.
that just
It's
popped
not
up.
even funny.
Eric, you silly kafirs. Don't you know those aren't anachronisms? Those are Quranic miracles. Quranic miracles. How could Muhammad have known such a thing? How could Muhammad have known all these things?
Well,
See?
you guys were talking about okay, so all the evidence that we have for the civilization of Egypt, and and it isn't just the hieroglyphics that we get. It's just not the statues or the buildings themselves, but they also find historical writings of that time. But one name that they don't find recorded in any of the historical literature or the historical manuscripts that we have from Egypt? Haman. What was the guy's name from Esther, the book of Esther?
Haman.
What was his name? Haman. There we go. Haman. I was going to say Haman. Haman. Guess where Haman is in the Quran?
He's in Egypt.
He's hanging out with the Pharaoh.
Building the Tower of Babel.
We have no idea where this, a guy that has what is a Persian name is over in Egypt, hanging with the Pharaoh as one of his close advisors. So when we start talking about, we ought to do a show on anachronisms. Everybody just pick one anachronism, drill down on it, come in and present it, and let's just have some fun with it because
the Bible. I mean, Gideon. There's a recent evidence for Gideon's existence on a pottery sherd that was found, which is like a minor character in the Book of Judges, proving that he historically existed.
What do they have? What do they have this on?
Potsherd.
Oh, on a pot. Okay, yeah. Well, if you go to, I've been to what's the guy's name? The guy's name was Sennacherib. Sennacherib. That we find his name in the Bible, and they found his castle, where he lived in Mosul, in Nineveh. I've been there. I got pictures of it somewhere around here. I have it on my computer. I'll show them to you if you want to see them. But
that'd be awesome.
Yeah, it's cool to see how we can go through archaeology, and how archaeology only lends credibility. What we find lends credibility to the Bible, whereas you compare that to Islam, not so. I mean, there's nothing there to prove.
You know what another name is? You know what another name is that is not found anywhere up until the time of Muhammad, or until the time of alleged Muhammad, or until the time of the Quran? Is the name Isa? Nobody has that name.
Yeah.
Think about that. See, what are Yeshua? Okay, Jesus or Yeshua. I forgot the long pronunciation. It was a very popular name in first century Judea. Okay.
God saves. Is that what it means?
God saves. Yeah. It's like the short. Yeshua is like the shortened version of Mike to Michael, I believe. It's actually Jacob, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Jacob, something like that. Joshua, yeah. It's actually long. The shorter version of Joshua, I believe, where Joshua would be the long name, or vice versa. I forget which one. Anyway, you don't find that name anywhere. No, seriously. Now think about this for a second.
He did it as a rhyme, didn't he? To try to rhyme with Musa. So then he said Isa.
Well, no. I got another theory on this. Think about this. He's in contact with these Jews, right? He's in contact with these Jews who, well, let's face it, they really hated Jesus. Okay. Because when Jesus says, if they reject you, it's because they reject me. It's a personal thing. Okay,
Yeah.
that's why But anyway, so they're telling this so-called prophet, okay, who says he believes in this Jesus person, or believes like the Christians do. So they're telling him all this nonsensical things, right? That actually there's hadith that actually say hadith in Sirah literature that say Muhammad was buying scripture from the Jews. And you know how he says they corrupted it with their own hand? That's what he's talking about. He's talking about these Jews that said, yeah, this is scripture. They corrupted them because they're testing them. They're making a fool out of them. You know what I mean? And they're laughing at him. Okay, so that's what he's talking about. But here they go to Isa, or Isa. Okay, it is closely related to the Aramaic version of Esau. Who is Esau in the Bible? The one whom God hated.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So here they are telling them, yeah. So here they are because they not all Jews. Don't get me wrong, not all Jews do this, but a historical tradition of Jews. They don't even say his name. They say may his name be blotted out. They call him all kinds of things. They corrupt the name, or they call or in English they call him that J person, so on and so forth. But anyway, so here they tell him, yeah, that Christian guy that they worship, his name is Esau. The one whom God hated. You know what I mean? So they completely just, oh man, they just made a fool of this Muhammad. And unfortunately, a bunch of Arabs who didn't know how to put a roof on their holy Kaaba, they decided to follow this guy. Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
What are you going to use to put on a roof on? I mean, there's no trades.
Oh yeah, actually, they put the roof on because somebody found a shipwreck 100 miles away and they carted the wood off. Do you know these guys wouldn't even have a navy? They honestly fought over this. They're like, should we have? Well, Allah's apostle never had a navy. Yeah, he's in the middle of the freaking desert, dumbass. And you're sitting there. They surrounded Caesarea or whatever the port city is for 3 years, and they couldn't figure out that the city was just being resupplied from the sea. And they're arguing, well, shouldn't we build a navy? Well, Muhammad didn't have a navy, so that would be innovation. And then finally, one of the generals, what's his name? The killer, I forgot his name. He actually said, basically, yeah, we should have a navy. And they made a navy, and that's how they finally, they captured some pirates or something like that. I forgot the whole story. But yeah, these morons didn't even want to get a navy, dude. It's amazing. Anyway, go ahead, sorry.
All right. So I think we've drilled down on that one quite a bit. Let me go ahead and open this back up here. And let's look at the problems of distance and direction. Uh-oh, something happened here. Distance and direction. Distance and direction. So when we look at where Mecca is, here's Mecca, here's Medina. Up here is Israel. So if Hagar, if she was truly sent into, what's the name of the desert to the south? Help me out, somebody. Bet something.
You're talking about the wilderness of Beersheba?
Yeah.
Where she was left off.
What was the name of the wilderness?
Beersheba. Well, Beersheba.
Beersheba. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Okay, that's just directly to the south, right here. So you're only about 600 miles off there. That maybe more or less. But let's look at the distances between the people who compiled the Sirah, the Hadith, and all of the writings that we are told that we have to trust for their historicity. So when we look at the writings from Baghdad, that's 1,800 kilometers. So 1,800 kilometers would
Can you make
be...
this screen bigger for people to read?
Yep, absolutely. Sorry. 1,800 kilometers to the north. 1,800 kilometers. How far is 1,800 kilometers? Is that like 1,000 miles? For every 1,000 kilometers, it's 610 miles. So we're talking about 1,000 miles away. And who was from Baghdad? Well, Ibn Hisham was from Basra, which is in southern Iraq today. And Mecca from Cairo is 1,600 kilometers, which is about 900 miles, more or less. Basra is about close to 1,000 miles, just to round it off. And Bukhari is from, look about Sahih Bukhari. Look where he's from. He's clear up in Bukharistan.
Wow.
How far is that? That's 4,200. That's
Man,
like
Muslims, please
2,500
wake up.
miles, for crying out. That'd be like driving from New York to California and being able to
Man,
describe
Muslims,
something accurately. Holy crap.
please wake up.
Tabari is from Tabaristan, which is about 2/3 of that distance, 2,800 miles. So we'll call that what, 1,800. What would be half? That's 14. So we'd call it probably about 1,600 miles, maybe 1,700 miles. So when we look at the traditional writers, the conclusion, it says right here, it says conclusion. I should make that white. But it says, I just got sidetracked. Sorry. The conclusion is that when you look at the writers of the Hadith, when you look at the writers of the Sirah, not only did they live centuries after the events in which they are writing about, they also lived hundreds, if not thousands, of miles away from those regions. And I think Dominic mentioned it earlier, is the Abbasids, who are the ones that originated all of this information. So when we think of Muhammad himself, there's nothing there. There's nothing there in the 5th century, the 6th or 7th century. Let me put it this way: until the very late 7th century, do we have anything about Muhammad? There's no historical records of Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, or Ali outside of Islamic literature. Period. There's nothing there. Not from the 7th century anyway. And when we look at Muhammad, he's supposed to be given these revelations from Jibril, not Gabriel, but Jibril, beginning in 610. And then 20 years after the death, we're supposed to have the Quran. But the earliest mention of Muhammad does not come until 691, and that is found in some inscriptions in the Dome of the Rock. Now, if anybody knows what is written in the Dome of the Rock, well, hold on a second. We're going to get to that. But you have a coin there. Then you have other non-Muslim sources that people have attributed to mentioning Muhammad. You have, let's see, Doctrina Jacobi talking about an Arabian prophet armed with a sword, no name. You have Sophronius writes about the invasion of Jerusalem from Omar, but never calls the invaders Muslims and never refers to Muhammad. An early Christian in the 640s mentions a battle between the Byzantines and the Tawi de Met, which no mention of Muhammad. You have an Armenian bishop gives kind of a historical account of an Arab preacher named Muhammad, who taught his people to worship the God of Abraham and led 12,000 Jews along with Arabs to invade Palestine. Well, that's not true, because Jews were not following Muhammad to invade Palestine. There's no record anywhere else of that occurring. So it's a different guy. 680, you have, you guys can go through this and you can take a look. My favorite right here is John of Damascus. And I have a book here by Dr. Janisic called John of Damascus, the First Apologist to the Muslims. And here you have a guy that lived in what is present day Israel or Lebanon, Syria, somewhere in that region, that he actually encountered these people. And he does not, he refers to Islamic theology and detail and writings of Muhammad, although he does not refer to a Quran by name. So it doesn't seem that the Quran has been canonized. Then if you go to coins, and I'm going to kind of go through these coins really quickly because I want to get to the Dome of the Rock. But if you go through coins, and there's a guy that Jay Smith has had on his channel. Does anybody watch this guy? His name's Odin. Something Odin.
Odin LaFontaine. Yeah, Odin LaFontaine.
Yeah, that's his name. Yeah, and this guy, if I'm not sure if he has any public writings or anything, I would. Does anybody have a website for that guy?
He does have some books in French.
Here we are, Odin LaFontaine. Here we go. Thank you, Michael. So Google that guy, and he's got, I mean, the majority of the information that Jay gets is from that guy that deals with the coins. So when we look at the coins, they have crosses on them. So you can't say, okay, this coin in the 1640s and 50s here has anything to do with Muhammad, the proper name Muhammad, because Muhammad denies the crucifixion itself. So you can't have your cake and eat it too. If you're going to have one with the other, then you have to accept the fact that Muhammad believed that Jesus was crucified on a cross. Let's see, Muawiyah, okay, that's 660, 670, holding a cross. So you have he was the first caliph, or no, the first imam after Ali, if I'm not mistaken, how that's all supposed to. Maybe I'm wrong on that. He's the first caliph after Ali, well, of the 4 rightly guided caliphs. And then you get into the 680s. You have another coin, but it still features a cross. And then Zubair, 680s. Here you have a coin that mentions Muhammad. And then the early 690s, you got Abd al-Malik, who built the Dome of the Rock. And here's where you finally find the Shahada. So here you have 60 years, six decades after the death of Muhammad. Do we find any mention of Muhammad? Oh, thank you, XYZ. He put, let's see here, author of, okay, so I'm assuming that's Odin's YouTube channel, and I'm trusting the Great Secret of Islam. I'm not sure what that is.
Well, he's got a book. It's called La Gran Secret de Islam.
Okay, so there it is. That's Michael put it
so
in chat.
If you can read French, because I don't think his book has been translated. Actually, the book came out in 2020, I believe.
Let's see.
I don't read.
Okay, let me get my Rosetta Stone software.
Yes, I'm going to have to get Babbel or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we can, what we can conclude or deduce from all of this is that most, if not all, of the information that Muslims take for granted as truth is quite unreliable. The information is unreliable. It's all based on legends and fairy tales from not even third and fourth hand information. It's what they call a chain of narrations from people down the centuries. And the information may or may not, more than likely, it has been inflated. It can't be relied on. This information that they take for granted cannot be relied on. Unlike the Bible, unlike the Gospels that were written by eyewitnesses, or in the case of Luke, he spoke to eyewitnesses. It's completely different. The Bible is not the same as the Quran. The Bible is clearly far more reliable. The Quran and the Hadith are not reliable.
Well, I would add to that when we start talking about, saying that it's supposed to be, how did you describe it again? Like fiction or stories, or how'd you describe that, George?
Legends.
Legend. Okay.
And I would say myth.
I would agree that a lot of that information that they had in the 8th and 9th century, you could safely say was redacted back upon the 6th and the 7th century. I think that's what it looks like. What has happened, and this is the whole premise of this slideshow, is to show how that information has been gathered in the 6th or in the 7th and 8th, 9th centuries, and sometimes even as late as the 10th century, and then it's been redacted back upon the events that had happened in the 6th century during the time of this person that is supposed to be the greatest pattern of conduct, standard of conduct for everybody to follow, Muhammad. Still vacuuming my flying carpet. That electric bill, yeah. Oh, here's one. Thank you, XY. The Legend of Zelda. It has about as much evidence for it. Yeah, I agree. Okay, so let's get back to this. These coins. So we don't see any coins. The first time that we see the Shahada is 690. 690. That's 58 years after the supposed death of Muhammad. And then we don't see coins that feature the Shahada until 696. The oldest coin that we get from Mecca, supposedly, is 824. 828, that's 200 years. 200
Wow.
years after the death of Muhammad. Now, the Dome of the Rock, when we look at the Dome of the Rock, because I went to Israel 4 years, it's been 4 years already, holy cow. And one of the things that we did that, you know, you there's just certain moments that you were, I mean, going there was like drinking from a fire hydrant. I'm serious. There's just so much there. You cannot possibly take all that in. I think Dominic had mentioned, you know, the evidence that we have for Hezekiah, King Hezekiah. We walked through Hezekiah's tunnel. They have water flowing through it, so you have to walk through water, and sometimes it comes up to, I bet the deepest it was probably about mid-thigh. Was about the deepest, but we got to walk. You have actual archaeological evidence for these events that occurred according to the Bible. But when we look at the Dome of the Rock, we were able to go to the Garden of Gethsemane, which is in the Kidron Valley, which just sits right on the western side, I believe it is, of the. I believe it's the western side of the Temple Mount. And they actually, the tour guides, they gave us time to pray. And you're sitting here looking up at the Temple Mount. And, you know, what do you say? What prayer do you offer up to God when you're sitting in when you're in the same garden from which Jesus Christ, you know, prayed his passion? But, you know, I looked up and I saw the Dome of the Rock, and I, you know, just knowing what that dome represents is why I prayed what I did. Because inside that dome, in the inner and outer ambulatories, it does have the verse from the Quran, was it 4174 or 517, whatever it is. It says, "Say not three," 5172. It says, "Say not three."
4171.
17. There we go. I
believe.
I don't want to say close enough, but yeah, and that is on the inner and outer ambulatories. It denies the deity of Christ. It says that Jesus was nothing more than a prophet. So what it does is it takes Jesus off. Basically, it's a slap in the face of the Christians. Number one, but number two, it denigrates Christ, is what it does. Because it says that he's not God. It says that he didn't die on a cross. So in the very spot where Solomon's temple once stood is now this shrine denying the very same thing that saves us from our sins. It denies the deity of Christ. It denies his death, deity, and resurrection. And to think that that sits in that same spot, it just tears your guts out, because you're looking at this, you know, this beautiful structure of the mount itself, and then you're looking at this dome that has this golden ceiling on it, and it knowing what that was designed for. Now, number one, it was built to commemorate Muhammad's night journey to heaven with God. He wrote
Another idol. Another idol.
What do you mean by that?
Another idol. The Dome of the Rock was, if it's commemorating Muhammad's flight, it's just another idol. It's no different than them making, like, okay, here's the footprints of Muhammad. Okay, here's the Kaaba. Here's the rock.
It was supposed to be called the furthest mosque, and John did a great job of. I think I still have that website bookmarked. I'm willing to be wrong on that. I don't have time to look at it for right now, but it was supposed to commemorate his night journey to the furthest mosque, and this is where Islam has their claim to Jerusalem. It stands with the third holiest site. Is where Muhammad was supposedly went to heaven to have his little meeting with Moses and with God, and they got his idea of 5 prayers. And this is what it's supposed to commemorate. Surprisingly enough, there's not one mention of this in the Dome of the Rock. It does not mention the night journey, not in the inner and outer ambulatories anyway.
Really?
No, it doesn't say anything about it.
Nope.
Not there. No esta aquí.
That's a good point. And wasn't that mosque built long after Muhammad's time?
691. It was okay. Here's right. Yeah, it was 691 under Abd al-Malik. You know who I'm talking about, al-Malik. But it was built in iterations, I think, because initially when Umar sacked Jerusalem, people went to the Temple Mount to pray. But here's the problem. This is another anachronism. Thank you very much. If Muhammad is supposed to go to the furthest mosque, and we know there was no mosque there in 629, because it wasn't built until 691, and this isn't even a mosque. It's just a shrine. Is all. It's not a mosque. The mosque that's there. What's the name of the mosque there?
Alaska.
Alaska. There we go. Alaska. Yeah, the mosque there, that wasn't built until 705. So you don't have, I mean, this, again, another anachronism.
Please, Islam is bluntly lying to you Muslims.
Exactly.
Please wake up and come to God and be saved.
Amen.
Amen.
Do you know they have a rock there at the Dome of the Rock? They have it enshrined. You can pay. You can stick your hand in there to feel where Muhammad pushed down on the rocks, because according to the legend, Muhammad was ascending to heaven, and the rocks wanted to go with him.
Yeah,
and he had to push.
Idol.
Yeah, he had to push the rocks down, and then so they have this rock, this boulder basically, and they have it enshrined, and you pay a donation, and you can stick your hand in there. You can stick your hand in there, because it's totally enshrined, so you can't see it. So it's like, I'm going to stick my hand in something I can't see where it's going. I don't think so. It's something like, ew, that's squishy kind of stuff. But anyway, you can put your hand in the fingerprints of the prophet. He left this indentation there.
Wow.
And come back to
so it's just idolatry continually. Yeah.
Gedalia pointed out something very important.
Which it's not. She's right.
Right. People get confused. The Al-Alaska Mosque is not the same as the Dome of the Rock. Right. The Al Mosque is the dirty, what does she call it? The dirty gray one.
Yeah. Show it again. Show it again. The dirty. Show it again, please, sir.
That?
Yeah, no, there are images with Muhammad sitting on a rock, and the other one where she said dirty.
Hold on.
I want to read that one.
Well,
there are images of Muhammad sitting on a rock. That's not the one. Okay, the Alaska Mosque is the dirty, grungy one they never use. Gray, dirty gray.
But it's
one they never use.
Because there's actually archaeology from the first temple actually in the actual Alaska Mosque. Did you know that?
Well, there's all kinds of evidence of the first temple all over that entire mount. I mean, when you look at the walls themselves, they're excavating down 20 feet. You can walk underground the entire length of the Western Wall. And you can see where they have these big stones. They call them Ashkar stones or something like that, where they're like 4,300 ton stones.
But there's actually wooden, because where it talks about in the Bible the wooden trees from Lebanon, which Hiram had.
Cypress, right?
Yeah, the cypress trees. Well, they actually found some of them in the actual Alaska Mosque used. So they've got the actual kind of things with all the actual kind of inscriptions, stuff on in the Alaska Mosque. In that,
I like to see if they do some carbon dating with those. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
To see if those are.
But they can't, because the Muslims aren't exactly going to say, okay,
it will disprove Islam all over again.
You guys want to hear a funny story?
They won't let nobody do fact checks on any of their idols, because it would be totally prove that Islam is false.
You guys want to hear a funny story? How the Christians during the time when
it'd better be funny, Rad. That's all I got to say.
It will be funny. I think it's funny, so it will be funny. You will laugh. You will laugh.
Laughing, Eric.
All right. So when Omar came and conquered Jerusalem, and it was basically they were like they only had like basically city patrol garrison troops because the actual Roman army had left to go fight at Caesarea or whatever it's called. So they left the gates of the city open, and they go to the what would the Church of the Sepulchre or whatever. Omar goes there.
Church of the Holy Sepulchre, right?
Yeah, Holy Sepulchre,
which is under Muslim control today. Oh, by the way,
right,
Muslim controls access to the door.
Right. Okay. So here's kind of a funny thing. So back at that time, the Temple Mount, because pretty much at the time, it's called partial preterism, but it was basically preterism, was the eschatology of the day. Okay, at that time. So the temple, actually, somebody tried to rebuild the temple. The apostate, Julian the Apostate, Constantine's son, and it's documented. The earth opened up, there were earthquakes, and fire came out, and it scared off all the workers, and nobody tried to rebuild again. So basically, what the Temple Mount had actually become was the municipal garbage dump. I am not making that up, okay? Because there was no reason for the temple. Jews were never going to rebuild the temple. Jews were exiled from the city to begin with. So there was no praying at the Wailing Wall. There was none of that. Okay, it was basically a municipal garbage dump. So Omar comes in. He says, "I want to know where the temple was, because that's where we'll go and pray." And the dude's like, "Yeah, it's the garbage dump up there on that hill, man. Go there and pray." So basically, eschatology speaking, basically religiously speaking, at that time, the Muslims, because they were so foolish, they had no idea what was going on. They actually went and built their holy sites on a garbage dump. Think about that. And I just find that really funny, dude, because it's like, dude,
I'm not sure if you would have a garbage dump up on a hill. Off to the sides of it.
Oh no, it was
garbage. I could see that, but I don't see how they could have
No, go look it up. It's where they were dumping the garbage. Okay, like I don't know if it was like kind of one of those sites where just people just dumped stuff that they didn't want or didn't need, like you have on the side of the road kind of deal. But it was definitely a garbage dump. It was a place where people put wasteful stuff. Wow.
Well, that would equate, a lot of stuff about Islam. So.
So once again, they were pulling.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I'll look it up for you. Hold on.
Okay. What I want to do is I want to touch on because you were talking about people going in and touching the rock there, because the temple, the Dome of the Rock sits right above Mount Moriah. This is where is the rock, which is thought where Abraham went to sacrifice Ishmael. Are you guys even listening?
Yes.
Isaac. It wasn't Ishmael. It was Isaac.
Isaac.
Okay. Anyway,
we thought you were catering to the Muslims.
Yeah, we thought you were referencing the Quran.
Yes, we were being kind to you, Eric.
Okay,
because
you're welcome.
Because you have the Well of Souls. So you have where the Dome of the Rock is. You have the Well of Souls, and that's where, and you have the foundation stone, and that's where Isaac was supposedly kind of. That's where Isaac and Abraham.
Okay, well, the thing that I was just going to use that as a point, as a jumping off point, because Rad talked about people having to put their hand through this hole, and they put your hand to where the foot of Muhammad was when he went into the seventh heaven or whatever heaven, or if he wasn't on his pony at the time.
I always imagine because if Muhammad didn't reduce the times that they had to pray, they would have to pray like, was it 50 times a day or like 10 times a day? They can better pray like 5 times a day. So yeah.
Well, what kind of God, if you're an omniscient God, is going to have you pray 50 times a day?
Yeah.
You need to pray 50 times a day. You would get nothing done. I mean, if that's what you did all day, every day, you have to go through all these rituals. You have to go through. That's all you would do all day long is pray.
Because I was talking to a Muslim recent. I think it was a Muslim. I was trying to convert him in a cab, and he said he can't handle 5 times a day. Like they can't even handle 5 times a day with the busy culture that we live in.
Yeah.
Let alone
think of it being. Think of it being. Let's just take another. Let's take half. 25 times a day. you would live at the mosque, and that would be about it. I mean, you would do nothing but pray. You would never get anything. Nobody would eat. You would definitely not be able to watch any soap operas in the afternoon. But the point I was trying to make about that was that if you go to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and it's if when you go into this place, I mean, I don't know if anybody of y'all are Greek Orthodox or Roman Catholic, but there's always just these icons all over the place. If you go to Greek Orthodox church, you have all these candles hanging down. It's very ornate. You have all of the gold fixtures everywhere, crosses everywhere. And then there's this altar. You have to go up these steps, and there's this altar which is above Golgotha, Calvary, where the cross where Christ is thought to have been crucified. And you can, there's this long line. It was hot, so we didn't wait in line, but there's this long line where you can wait, where you can actually get underneath the altar and reach down and touch Calvary, Mount Calvary, where Christ was crucified. And
it was hot.
It was hot. It's hot in the church. Yeah. But it's an absolutely beautiful church. And then there's also
wait. This is a dude. You're a dude that was jumping out of airplanes and helicopters and wearing full Kevlar and carrying full battle rattle in Iraq and battling it out and shooting guns and blowing crap up, and driving unair conditioned Humvees and all kinds of crazy stuff. And it was too hot, dude. Man,
and Eric is saying it's too hot. Jeez.
You got old.
I'm retired, man. I told you that.
He'd be one of the ones crying in one of the 120 in the upper room crying in chapter 2. That
I
was
would
too
be.
hot.
It's like, it's hot in here. Where's Jesus at? Get him up here so we can go. That would be me. Yeah.
Hey, if
I share my screen there, Eric, so we're going to read that. So just let you know.
Okay, Dale had something to say. Go ahead.
Yeah, Eric, if you think about it, it makes absolutely no sense why Muslims would believe that Ishmael was the sacrificial child. There were no promises to Abraham associated with him. Mm-hmm. So it would be no sacrifice to kill him. If God asked me to sacrifice Ishmael, it would be a lot easier to do it than it would be with Isaac, because all of these promises that God made with me would have been through Isaac, not through Ishmael. It would have been absolutely no sacrifice at all to sacrifice Ishmael, other than my personal love for him, that he's my biological son.
Right. And the Bible's very clear that the covenant that God passed through Abraham goes through Isaac. It doesn't go through Ishmael. Now, is there a Quran verse that says that it was Ishmael? I mean, is this the Quran or is this Hadith?
No, it does not say anything of Ishmael in the Quran
not
at all about that.
It doesn't even know their names. Doesn't have any clue their names, dude.
What about that?
It talks the situation, but it never names the son's name.
And as a matter of fact, it's anachronistic in the Quran when it mentions Abraham and Ishmael, because it was Avram, it was Abram when he was associated with Ishmael. His name change came with the promise of Isaac.
Sure.
So he only became Abraham after the promises of Isaac was on the horizon. So using Abraham's name associated with Ishmael is an anachronism. It was Abram, not Abraham.
We need to do a show just on anachronism. I think that would be a lot of fun.
But remember, the Quran corrects the Bible.
Right. because the Jews that he was buying scripture from didn't tell him the name. So he's just like, oh, okay, whatever.
Well, here's the funny part. If you read the Quran, you can find where Allah says, and I bestowed Abraham, Isaac, and I bestowed Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, his grandson. You will not find a verse in the Quran where Allah says, and I gave Ishmael to Abraham. Why is that?
I believe that's Surah, is that 68? No, not 68.
What? Which one? About Abraham and Isaac?
Yeah, I think that's Surah 6.
You got 29.
Deuce Vault, I didn't have a question about it. I'm sorry. I was just pointing that out because in Greek Orthodox Church, that you have, for lack of a better description, you have a lot more bling in a Greek Orthodox church than you do a Baptist church, and that's the only. I was just trying to give a general description of what the altar above Mount Calvary looks like. That's all. And I see Paul finally showed up. Thank you, Paul. I'm glad you're here. Okay, so what? Okay, so we were just talking about what we were just talking.
Dome and Rock. Share the screen real quick. Share my screen real quick.
All right, here we go.
All right, make it bigger. Make it bigger.
I can't make it any bigger than that.
All right, the Sassanid period. These are Persian. In 610, the Sassanid Empire drove the Byzantine Empire out of the Middle East, giving the Jews control of Jerusalem for the first time in centuries. The Jews in Palestine were allowed to set up a vassal state under the Persian, called the Sassanid Jewish Commonwealth, which lasted for 5 years. Jewish rabbis ordered, I didn't know this part, Jewish rabbis ordered the restart of animal sacrifice for the first time since the Second Temple and started to reconstruct the Jewish temple. Shortly before the Byzantines took the area back 5 years later, in 615, the Persians gave control to the Christian population, who tore down the partially built Jewish temple edifice and turned it into a garbage dump, which is what it was when the Rashidun Caliph Omar took the city over in 637. What?
Click on that 82. What is the source for that?
82.
Where it says...
I got it. Kamin Gada, Jerusalem today, what future for the peace process? Garmount, that's an impression. No, it's legit. This is what it was.
Well,
I'm
not doubting it. I just find it hard to believe that they would treat the Temple Mount. Well, I mean,
remember,
they were okay. I get it. They were not. The Jews were not the friends of the Christians, or the Christians were not the friends of the Jews at that time. So I completely understand.
And what kind of Christians were they? Were they?
Well, okay. Well, no,
were they
you got to understand.
Catholic?
Okay, hold on. You got to understand the eschatology of that time was pederasty or preterism, not pederasty, preterism, which means that everything has been fulfilled in the Bible. So there's no reason for the temple. The temple was destroyed, as it says in Hebrews. All these things are coming to fruition, are coming to be completed. Okay, even though they were still being done during the time when Hebrews was written, you say no, it's going to be done away with. It is going to be destroyed. So therefore, there was no reason for the temple. So this was a total insult to the Jews. I shouldn't say an insult to the Jews, but a total mark that Christianity has won, because your temple is not being rebuilt. And we've turned it into a garbage dump, okay, is what they're saying at that time. But what I'm pointing out, is that these Muslims who supposedly, that there was a mosque there, that there was, the sacred mosque or the furthest mosque or whatever, that there was a sacred, place for Christians, they didn't know this. They honestly didn't know this. And even when they were told, it's the garbage dump, dude, they're like, okay, that's where we're going to go and worship. It's like, what? You know what I mean? There's no logical continuation of thought. Okay, it's just like I said. Muhammad bought a bags of magic beans from the Jews, who gave them this weird religion. Okay, to attack Christianity, and they kind of ran with it. Actually, to expose him as an idiot, as Maimonides calls him, a moron, an imbecile, and all kinds of flattering remarks. Okay, but yeah.
Do you have a link to what you just posted? Because I'll be interested in reading it as well.
Oh, that's just Wikipedia, or what? I put on Maimonides or on this? This is just.
Oh no, just the link that you just posted just now about this, about the assassinate.
Oh yeah, sure. Well, it's just a blurb out of Wikipedia, but I'll share it. I'll share it in the chat there.
Well, hold on. Let me bring that. What the heck is going on here? There we go. Okay, what's the title of that article on Wikipedia, Red?
It's just the Temple Mount. Temple Mount. But go down to Byzantine period, Sassanid period here.
Okay, there we go. All right, simple enough. Let's see, what time is it? Okay, over on Blog Talk Radio, I'm going to go ahead and cut the show off at this point. Those of you who are there, thank you for coming.
We're done already?
No, not yet. Hold on, just hold your horses. So thank you for coming, and we will see you on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Central on the Cross and the Crescent discussion group. And we're going to get the Blog Talk Radio lady.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.
Adios, muchacha. Okay, because if we go longer than that, it does not. If I don't cut that off before the 2 hours, and Paul could probably attest to this there in chat, that if you don't cut that off at 2 hours, you can't upload the video. So I didn't. It won't have the video. I've had all kinds of problems with that, so I have to. That's why people ask, well, why do you shows are limited to 2 hours? And it's because of Blog Talk Radio. Now we can go longer here on
Yay!
on YouTube than that. But I just want to make sure I took care of that business there. All right, so let's jump back to the
Dome of the Rock.
Here. The Dome of the Rock.
Yay!
Here we go. Wait, add the stream.
The abomination that causes desolation.
Well, that's what I saw it as when I'm praying that prayer. I'm like, God, remove this from this land. It is an abomination. What I mean, I don't want. See, this is the thing. I don't want to be over the top offensive to people.
You.
I know that because I'm an Islamophobe, but I don't want to be over the top offensive to say, okay, that Dome of the Rock is an abomination and just leave it at that. I want to make sure that people understand the reason why I consider that. I believe that if you don't have an abiding faith that Jesus Christ is the Son of God and that he died for your sins on a cross in the first century Jerusalem, that condemns you to hell. You're going to die in your sins. My desire for the person is that they will be saved through Jesus Christ. So when you have a monument that denies the crucifixion, denies the deity of Jesus Christ, sitting right on top of the very point where Abraham is thought to have sacrificed Isaac, not Ishmael. Isaac. I think it's an abomination. That's
you know. It's interesting. I mentioned Maimonides. I'm gonna have to pull up that letter for y'all. But in his letter to Yemen, he actually mentions Daniel. He said this is the one that Daniel prophesied to us about. And I think he makes reference to when you see the abomination that causes desolation sitting on the high place where it does not belong. I believe he makes reference to that verse, and he's referencing this Dome of the Rock monstrosity.
Jesus does say that about when he stands in the holy place as he is God. Yeah.
Anyway, Maimonides makes reference to Daniel, to that verse. When he's, let me pull it up. Go ahead and talk some more.
What I was going to say, I was just going to add to that what Connie was saying is that this is the usurpation of Muhammad of Christ. Everything that Christ is thought of as being worshipped in the Bible, Muhammad replaces with himself, or at least when we start looking at it analytically now, and from a historical point of view, it is being Muhammad is replacing Christ through the process of redaction. They're redacting him back onto history. All right, let's jump back over to the slideshow. Additional claims: Muhammad was known as the last of the prophets and became the centerpiece of the religion that began through his leadership. But we don't see any mention of Muhammad until the Caliph Abd al-Malik. And Abd-Malik did not live until the 690s. So the idea that Muhammad was the inventor of the religion is now starting to look like it was an invention of this caliph. And I believe he was the third or fourth caliph after Ali. It seemed like the caliphs had a hard time maintaining not maintaining room temperature, had a tough time of staying 98.6 during this time.
Are you talking about the Caliph Abd al-Malik?
Yes. Caliph
he was the 10th caliph, but the 5th caliph of the Umayyads.
Okay, so yeah, all right. So I knew that there was quite a few caliphs between Ali and this guy.
Because Abd-al-Malik was the first person to universalize Arabic, and he had his central home he had a home in Tiberias, then he had a desert palace. Ooh. So I know because I've done some kind of research on Abd-al-Malik. So he was the one that universalized Arabic. So before him, Arabic wasn't the universal language among the Muslims. he was the one that brought it into.
Oh, here's a great point that Michael puts out. They put graves in front of the gate. I think it's the eastern gate. There it is. Okay, here it is. Gedalia puts it out. The eastern gate was to prevent Jewish Messiah from gaining entrance into the great gate, and this is why there's graves, and there are graves right out there in front of that gate. Yeah, thank you for that. Okay, so Caliph. So when you look at Abnalik, he needs a prophet to be the mouthpiece of Scripture. And when we look at, I think I put it in here, when we think of Constantine and his desire to keep the his empire, the Roman Empire unified, calls the Council of Nicaea. Here you have something very similar going on, a ruler using religion to unify his empire. And by standardizing the religion and redacting back upon these stories that have obviously surfaced and existed, legends, prior to that, it makes perfectly good sense that it was he that did this. When we look at, was Muhammad's life lived in the full light of history? Okay, when we look at his sirah, what do they call it? The Sirah Rasulullah, from Ibn Ishaq. Ibn Ishaq doesn't live for 125 years after the reported death. But there's a problem with this. We don't have anything that Ibn Ishaq. Oh golly, come on. Sorry, let me go back here. Okay, so when we look at Ibn Ishaq, the first biography, he lives 125 years after the death of Muhammad, and we don't have anything that he wrote. The earliest report that we do have, of course, is 200 years, and this is by Ibn Hisham. So when you talk about the biography, when you write somebody's biography, what you want to do, this is how, come on, folks, this is how history is done. If you want to know what happened at the time of George Washington, you ask Martha. And if Martha doesn't have anything to say, you go ask Ben Franklin. If he doesn't have anything to say, you go ask John Adams. John Adams doesn't have anything to say, you go ask Sam Adams, John Hancock. Any of those guys that lived at the same time with George Washington, those are the ones that you are going to ask. You're not going to ask Robert E. Lee 7 years ago what George Washington had to say. Well, Robert E. Lee might know because he married his granddaughter or something. Robert,
I just turn on the History Channel or I YouTube it, man. That's what I do.
About what?
About anything with George Washington. You know what? He did not cut down the cherry tree and tell the truth about it. That was a lie. I'm shocked. I don't believe in nothing no more. I don't believe they lied to us. You history teachers, you taught me that George Washington could never tell a lie. He cut down the cherry tree and his dad busted him. And he said,
it's there. It's there. We have Ibn Ishaq wrote it. We got it from Ibn Ishaq. That's terrible. Or even George III. That's who we got it from.
I'm sorry, that humor was brought to you by Radical Moderately Radical. Just saying. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so let's go back to the date here. This is 200 years, and we get a lot of the stories of Muhammad, a lot of the practices of Muhammad we find in this book. And in this book, you find all kinds of things that are troubling. But you also find some things in here that really throw the narrative of this corruption in the toilet. Let's see, there was something in here that references John as an apostle.
In John's Gospel. The Gospel of John.
Right, it references the Gospel of John. And it also says here on page 653, those whom Jesus, son of Mary, sent, both disciples and those who came after him in the land were Peter, the disciple, and Paul with him.
Woo-hoo!
So it mentions Paul. So when you start talking about, it was Paul who corrupted the Gospels, dude, your book, read your own sources for Pete's. I'm not going to break my stuff here.
And it says about the Paraclete, the Holy Spirit, he who who raises the dead, and then the guy writes, well, no, that doesn't fit Muhammad. That doesn't fit. That must have been a bad definition, he writes.
Can you give me that reference for Paul again? I've heard it before, but I can never remember the reference.
Okay, it's from the Sirah. It's from the Sirah of Muhammad. You turn to page, let's see, 653. 653, and they have these things by paragraphs, and it's T1560. But if you look about halfway down on page 653, it says, to those whom Jesus, son of Mary, sent, both disciples and those whom come after him in the land were Peter, the disciple, and Paul with him. It talks about Andrew and Matthew, Philip, Thomas. So it gets James to Jerusalem. So it gets a lot of Bartholomew.
Wow.
It gets a lot of them. It includes a lot of the names of the disciples.
And they want to put all those men down. They want to put all these men down and say,
no. The only one they go after is Paul.
Right.
Well, no, they don't. Well, in a sense, okay, yes, sir. What I mean is, they say there's no proof that there's Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John that wrote these. So they,
right.
So that's what I'm saying. They put them down.
Yeah,
so,
you're right. Yeah, because I got into it with that Nematullah, whatever his nuts is. He was an apologist in England. I had a debate with him, and his objection was, well, we don't know who wrote the Gospel of Matthew. We don't know who wrote the Gospel of Mark. We don't know who wrote the Gospel of Luke. We don't know who wrote the Gospel of John. Yes, we do.
Well, we do. Yes, we do.
But also, I would say
they just claim to their own ignorance.
Yes, so did your most trusted sources. They knew who wrote it also.
Yeah, Islamic sources. So, I don't know what the imams are teaching them, but they're not teaching them from Islamic sources at all.
I don't know what they teach. What you do know is, though, when you see these people in places like Speaker's Corner and they start acting like a bunch of demons, that the information that they do have is not correct. And this is the argument that I've always made, is a lot of these Islamic apologists know so many facts that simply aren't true. I mean, they just know so much that's not right. They keep regurgitating the same thing over and over and over and over again. And hopefully, in a lot of cases, people will believe it, because they won't do, it's David Wood's 99-to-1 rule. 99% of the people will sit there and Allah Akbar and clap like a bunch of seals, eat the fish. And then that one person will go out and research it and say, hey, wait a second, that's not right. And then the other 99 will give them a beatdown for daring to question somebody like Zachar Knight or Ahmadidat, or who's that rabbi? Tovia
Singer. Tovia Singer.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah.
That guy's actually, he follows the Sunnah of Muhammad by getting little girls, molesting them anyway. Okay, so let's get back to the PowerPoint. I think, what is this? Hold on a second. G'day, what are you saying here? But I can't. What is this? He gave an STD and gave it to his wife. All right, that's a little. Yeah, here we go. Tovia, thank you. All right. So Muhammad was already a revered prophet and model of moral conduct for his followers. Yeah, especially if you're
for in Imam's word, perverts. Yeah, well,
and that's what, so that's let's just revisit. No, I'm not going to revisit it. I'm not.
Yeah,
sorry about it. No, sorry about it. No.
Let's just get. All right. So he was already revered prophet for his followers. If you look at all the deeds of Muhammad that we have, were written down in the Hadith. And look at this. The date of the Hadith, this is 250 years. So we don't know anything that Muhammad said as a human being outside of the Quran for 250 years.
Okay.
250 years. 250. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was going to say.
That's longer than America, right? It's longer than the history of America.
Yeah, but here's my question. Do they actually have these hadiths from Bukhari that we can date back?
Great question. Great question. Right. Yeah, the earliest extant manuscript of a hadith is dated 400 years after Muhammad.
That's what I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
400 Muslims. 400.
Right. So we don't, yeah, because they'll sit there and complain, oh, well, you don't have any Bible manuscripts, that date, 100 years of the life of Christ. Dude, you don't have anything that Muhammad said unless you date it, 400, it's 400 years later. And here's one of the things that always comes up is that, well, we have Qurans, these folios, the Sana manuscript, The Sana manuscript is a palimpsest, number one, meaning that there's underlining script that has been washed off. That's number one. Number two, the Sana Quran predates the Quran.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is they've carbon-14 dated this Amajama, and they've dated it clear back to like 380, 400 AD. Now, if you do a timeline, if you know anything about history, Muhammad wasn't even born for another century and a half after the dates that the Quran has been dated.
Come on, Muslims, think about this.
Yeah, and
Come
then
to God
the other
and be
dates,
saved.
the other dates that they come up with on this of all the other folios, all the other manuscripts are way outside of. Well, I'm not going to get into it. Let's just get back to this. I have too much fun with that kind of stuff. All right, so 250 years after that. So when we look at Muhammad, his name only appears in the Quran 4 times, and three of those 4 times it can be used as a title, the praised one, Ahmed, the praised one. So when we think of, in the Quran it mentions Muhammad's name, but it only mentions his name 4 times. Now, if you look at the other descriptions of him, you say like the messenger, Rasul Allah, that's 300 times, or if you just call him
hold back. It's not Ahmed. It's Hamad. It's
there you go. All right. I don't speak Arabic, but thank you.
Hamad. Yes, sir. Well, I've been studying this stupid stuff for over 30 years, so
I think it's Ahmed.
Yeah, that's it. Ahmed. Yeah, Ahmed. Yeah, Ahmed.
Well, John, what? Say that again, John.
Ahmed, not Muhammad. Yes. It's Ahmed.
Right. Ahmed. A-H. And then M-A-D.
Yeah, it's hard to pronounce in English, I know, because the letter Ha is not in English.
So it's not
Yeah, it's hard.
Now don't come out of breath. Okay, so Ahmed.
like you have spit in your mouth, like you're about to spit a loogie out.
Right. Okay.
Ahmed. But people are finding out that name is going back to Christ.
Right.
So
right. And that's
we have to be very careful about that. Yes, sir.
Right. You could start using that same name as a reference to Christ.
Yes, sir.
So the question then becomes: are all of these references to Muhammad? And you get some people saying that he was a historic person, maybe even a prophet in the desert. But it was nothing more than a leader used by Abdul Malik for his propaganda. And what I mean by that is he is redacting that name back onto Muhammad, or redacting that title back onto this historical figure, or a historical figure named Muhammad. So when we look at the conclusions of this, the praised one was could be an epithet of Jesus, a description of Jesus. So if they're using the Quran, which actually predates the Quran, it could be just writings that predate Jesus. And then the phrase Muhammad Rasul Allah from the Shahada should be translated as praised be the messenger of God. And you could say that was referring to Jesus Christ. So a lot of these developments,
and
go ahead.
And by telling Arabs that he is a messenger of God, that is supposed to cause in the Arabs to go, then what's the message? Okay,
right,
and that's where the imams will not, teach that to the Arabs or to the Muslims these days. They won't teach them, well, what's the message? The message is salvation.
Salvation, how?
Because it turns them back to going to the gospel, where the message of Christ is salvation. Come to salvation. You know, be forgiven of your sins. Be washed, cleansed, clean.
Through Jesus, and this is where
exactly. That's exactly
of
right.
Muhammad replacing Jesus.
Yes, that's what they're doing, sir. Yeah. So that meant that right there. Yes, sir. Yeah.
I need to write that book. Okay. What
write
else?
A book. Write a book. Write a book, Eric. Write a book.
Yeah, I have no life.
Hey, Eric, can you shamelessly promote my video, dude? Just saying.
Sure. What?
Can you shamelessly promote my video?
Oh yeah. Let's. As a matter of fact, let me play that. You want me to play it?
Yeah. Before you do that, I just want to endorse that idea, Eric, that you should write the book. I think it's something that's important and necessary, you know, to put these things out there. Some of the material I know are in other places, but putting them all together on in an orderly fashion, I think is going to be quite useful for people even beyond your time.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of ups to writing a book as opposed to just doing like a YouTube video. And plus, you know, it's the idea of somebody being able to come in and reference some of the ideas. But there's a lot of research that goes into that. And I'm not afraid of doing the research. I'm not afraid of doing the work. I've done it before, but there's just Garrett Pwin. He's in this slideshow, and we're going to get to him next week, Michael. When we start talking, we're going to get to him next week, Garrett Pwin. But again, this is an idea that that people have come up with before. So I really wouldn't be. What's the word I'm looking for here? I wouldn't be doing any, producing, some type of doctoral thesis or, what's the word I'm looking for? You defend your. It doesn't matter. It wouldn't be as if I was. It wouldn't have to be completely academic. Let's just put it that way. All right. What else do we have today, folks? Oh, Rad, your video. I'm sorry.
Well, it's 20 minutes in length, so you don't have to play the whole thing. But just put
now, where's the 8-minute one? Where's the 8-minute one?
You have a. Okay, if you want to play that one, that's fine. Yeah,
which one do you want me to play?
All right, play the 8-minute one.
No, I can play this. No, this other one is. I have it right here.
You have the link for play.
Let me drag it over. Hold on. This is your moto rant. Is there any particular part you want me to start at?
Well, if it's the 8-minute one, you can pretty much start from the beginning. Is it? Wait. Let me see here. What episode is it?
What episode is what?
The one that you're going to play, is it 237 or 238? The 8-minute one is episode 238.
Okay, no, this is the one that I have on my screen right now is 237. Do you want me to go to 238?
Yeah, sure. Go to 238.
All right, let's go to 237. I don't see 238.
All right, I'll give you the link. I'll give you the link before.
What did you do with it?
I put it on my channel before I uploaded it to yours. So.
Oh, I see. I see where your priorities are. Thank you.
All right, hold on. Let me grab it.
That's 237. I don't, because you just sent it. I just saw that you'd sent it. Did you send it to me in an email?
I sent it to you on Skype. Here, I'm getting it.
I don't see it on Skype.
Contents.
Here we go. Here
we go. Hold on. All right, I just put it in the chat, in the stream chat, StreamYard chat.
Okay, hold on. No, I have it right here. I already got it. Sorry. Psych. I got it.
Oh, okay.
All right, let's go ahead and play this for, let's see here. We're going to, I got to remove it and then add. Okay, let's see, share, stop screen share. I got to redo it because I don't think I had the audio there. So I got to redo the audio. And then let's go ahead and make that full screen, redo the audio. And here we go. Now, this is new material. I have not reviewed this material. So do I have to give some type of disclaimer?
Yeah, Eric is not responsible for the content of this video. Just to let you know.
I'm not responsible for everything Rad says, but I do look
No,
at
yeah.
it. So
Right.
we're running with it. All right, here we go.
All right.
More on this, Kenny. Thinking more on this, Kenny. So, Kenny, let me get this straight. So, Kenny, let me get this straight. And I don't want to get too much into your marital crap. Really, I don't. But there's kind of a few things I find. One. Well, first of all, Kenny, let me ask you this. Actually, no, this is important because this relates to Islam. Kenny.
You know what? Let me try to play it on my end because the audio is not coming through on your end. Yeah, let me stop it. Yeah, let me share it on my end. Hold on. Because it just is not working on your end. No, because your previous one didn't work either.
We can't hear you, Eric.
No.
Yeah, I'm trying to listen. I'm holding my head head, so I can about imagine what you guys are going through there.
All right, here we go.
Okay. Oh, there we are.
You got it?
Yep, got it.
All right.
There we are.
All right, let me mute myself. Tell me if you can hear it.
Yeah, thinking more on this, Kenny.
Yeah, we can hear it, Eric. Oh, we can hear it.
More on this, Kenny. So, Kenny, let me get this straight. So, Kenny, let me get this straight. And I don't want to get too much into your marital crap. Really, I don't. But there's kind of a few things I find funny. One. Well, first of all, Kenny, let me ask you this. Actually, no, this is important because this relates to Islam. Kenny, you keep accusing your wife of stepping out on you. You keep accusing your wife of committing adultery on you, right? And you yourself actually said that you would stone an adulteress to death. If so enacted to by Islamic Sharia, by the Khalid, Sharia law perfectly established, however you want to justify this, by me, I don't care. But either way, it was a legal ruling. You would stone someone to death, committing adultery. But then you also say, and this is actually true, some of the schools of Islamic jurisprudence demand 4 male witnesses, okay, that actually saw the penetration. And if you can't produce those 4 male witnesses, and you are falsely accusing someone of committing adultery, and you don't have those 4 witnesses, under the Sharia that you say you practice, you would get 100 lashes publicly. So, Kenny, gotta ask you, Kenny, you got 4 male witnesses, 4 of your male friends that saw this dude's penis into your wife's vajayjay or ex-wife's vajayjay? Huh? Do you have that? If not, then guess what, Kenny? She owes you in this world, and she will owe you in the next world, Kenny Mulder. So stop accusing your ex-wife of committing adultery. If you don't have the Islamic evidence of 4 male witnesses. Okay? Seriously, Kenny. Quit falsely accusing this woman of committing adultery. Because remember, Kenny, you're the one who says you follow the Sharia. You're a Muslim, and Muslims in the USA follow the Sharia. So that means you better have the evidence of calling someone an adulteress of the 4 male witnesses actually seeing the penetration. Kenny, do you see how long that is, Kenny? So I want to get gas here. Yeah, I'm going to get gas. Might as well. Anyway. Is there a gas station? I thought there was. Anyway, Kenny, I just always wanted to say that, Kenny. You have 4 male witnesses to prove that you're 4 male witnesses that actually saw the penetration. Okay, I don't want to get gas here. Yeah, they got the cheap guys. How many bucks do they got? Oh no, they do, huh? All right, cool. But yeah, Kenny. 4 male witnesses that saw the penetration, saw the dude's penis into your current wife at the time, your now ex-wife, the JJ. Did you follow the advice of Prophet Muhammad, according to Malachi, where the dude asked him, if I catch my wife committing adultery, do I need to go and get 4 male witnesses? And your prophet said, yes, indeed. I mean, that's just pathetic, Kenny. Anyway, I'm going to pause this. I might catch it up later.
My question is do you have a gun with you at this time, Rad? I mean, where's your gun? I mean,
it's like, no, I'm nowhere near Chicago. So no, but I got a big knife on my hip. So yeah, and I got a shillelagh in the thing. But no, I just find it uncomfortable to carry on a motorcycle. I just do. You know what I mean?
It's true. And yeah, in Illinois, you know, it's a communist-run country. If they had, you know, they don't even let you go out, leave your home with a gun.
No, we can carry concealment.
Oh, can you?
You know, yeah, we're the last of the 50 states, dude. It was actually done by. I think that's it. I think we're done now. Yeah. Yeah. Well, why is it still playing?
I don't know. The station.
You shared it, Brad, so you have to unshare it.
Oh, it's still going. What I do?
Yeah. Okay, that's on your end, brother. That's not me.
Am I still talking?
Yeah, you're still running your hip in there.
Am I saying anything good or bad? I can't hear it.
Okay.
All right. Well, we can end. Okay, I found it. Okay.
Okay. There. Yeah. All right.
Okay.
So.
You know, that's a good point. That is a good point, Rad.
Well, that's the thing, because you know, Kenny has said it multiple times that he would participate in a stoning in a pure Sharia law state. Kenny has stated multiple times that the Muslims we practice. Remember, he said to you, Kenny, I got news for you, Kenny. We're practicing the Sharia law right now. We're doing it right now, every day. Muslims are doing it. Okay, Kenny. Well, here's the deal. I don't expect Kenny to go stone. Well, to be honest with you, the chick did. Well, if what he said is true, and the chick did try to murder him, I cannot fault him for this. I'm just saying. Okay, maybe not stoning her to death, but if she did try to set him up to murder him, she should definitely be in prison. Okay, just saying. All right, but anyway, but anyway, the point is this: if he lives by the Sharia code, then the Sharia code says that he has to have 4 male witnesses that actually saw the penetration, right? According to Kenny's mom, but actually according to some of the scholars, right? And if he doesn't provide that evidence, then he is making a false accusation against his ex-wife that she committed adultery. He is besmirching her good name. Besmirching the good name of the mother of his children, allegedly. Never mind, I'm not going to do that. But anyway, okay. Point being is this, right? If he is truly following the Sharia law, then he should have that level of evidence. Of actually, as Muhammad advised, you know, when asked, if I catch my wife committing adultery, should I bring 4 male witnesses? And Muhammad replied, yes, absolutely. Share my shame with everybody. You know, get up there close and personal like you're making a porno. You know what I mean? Okay? We got to actually see that evidence. Okay? So if Kenny doesn't have that, okay, that level of evidence, then he should not be making that accusation against her.
Then he's slandering her. He's
slandering her. Uh-huh. And under Islamic law, he would get 100 lashes publicly. Now, I'm not expecting, well, I don't know, maybe he'd enjoy that. I don't know. Maybe that was the problem. I don't know. Maybe he'd like getting whipped or caned by his ex-wife. I don't know. I'm not going to get into that. But I'm just saying, this is the hypocrisy of Islam. This is how the Islamic criminal justice system fails, ultimately fails. And that's the other point I wanted to make. But anyway, yeah, go to the Cross and the Crescent and look at the other longer rant against him that discusses the situation that has happened between Kenny, this dude Marshall, Eric, and everybody else. I don't know. Did you find it good? I mean, did I pretty much lay it out on him, or what, Eric?
Yeah. You spelled it out in that video, but also in the emails that we've had. Just to give everybody the 411, I got this 5-page, literally a 5-page email from the Imam. Was it yesterday morning? It was yesterday morning. And it was a response to something that it was a response to Beholder Guard on our show. And this is what he's asked, he's proposed. This is his proposal, is that I host or moderate a Shura council for Kenny and Beholder Guard.
Actually, I'll do it.
I know, but I'm just asking everybody to think about that. After he called Beholder Guard an apostate, labeled him an apostate for
he actually
on our show.
I just checked. He actually just posted another short little video 5 hours ago where he's calling him apostate again, and he actually says, "You pick the venue, the Islamophobes or my site."
Yeah, I don't. Well,
I would say think about the Constitution. Think about the Constitution. That is so
exactly. That's a great point.
Constitution.
That's a great point.
Yes,
I'm not going to have anything to do with the Sharia.
Amen.
This is the United States of America.
You. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Rad, you and I will talk about that.
All right.
It was
Dr. Rad, I have a question for you. I know since you are the fountain of knowledge, you should be able to answer this question. Is there anything called a Hindu phobe?
There's a Buddha-phobe.
A Buddha-phobe?
A Buddha-phobe. People who are afraid of men with big bellies. That's
I see.
Which is every woman I encounter. I'm just saying.
But of course, the point is that this term has only been invented for one ideology.
Right. Yeah, we went over that. And you're absolutely right, George. This is just a way to deflect criticism.
Are you saying
of
about Islamophobia?
Of Islam. Yes. Who is that? Is that
Adam?
That was Isa.
Isa ain't said anything all
I'm
day.
on a little live.
Finally,
was it
get
Islamophobia you were talking about?
Yeah, when we were talking about Islamophobia, that's a charge. Anybody that would dare to criticize Islam, it doesn't matter if people criticize Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, Hinduism, Shintoism, Tao, any other thing. There's no such thing as those phobes. It's only Islamophobia that applies.
And to my mind, a phobia is an illogical fear of something. But is it illogical to fear or dislike the stoning of women? Is it illogical to fear or dislike the idea of taking homosexuals to the highest point and throwing them off? These are all part of Sharia law. And another important fact is that the Muslim countries do not subscribe to the same human rights code as the rest of the world. Why?
Oh, yeah,
because they want the ability to discriminate against people based on their teachings. So I don't know if the term Islamophobe or Islamophobia makes any sense. It's not illogical, in my view.
Right.
There's a website that I go to. Here's just the cover of it. I mean, it's
interesting too because there's many different forms of Islam, and like who's Daesh and ISIS killing? Well, they're killing Muslims. So I mean that's something to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's basically set up to kill.
They're killing Muslims, and this is because Muslims often give this argument: "Oh, we are the victims of terrorism." Yes, because Muslims are killing other Muslims who they say are hypocrites. They are not Muslim enough. They're not enough like the Prophet. That's why they're competing and killing each other.
Yeah, the Taliban would come in and kill them. They would call them Islamophobia because they're misrepresenting it.
Here's
well, I think they have different interpretations. That's the interesting thing.
Oh,
So
Bare Naked Islam.
What do you
If
do
go to
with
Bare
that?
Naked Islam. Here's the subtitles to Bare Naked Islam. It isn't Islamophobia when they really are trying to kill you. And there's all kinds of articles in there that that talks about the attacks. The other one is The Religion of Peace. When we looked on 9/11, there was 3,000 or 39,000.
No, it's 40,000 now, sir.
I know.
No,
yeah,
it's 40,000 now.
Right there.
Yes,
Yeah. I'm just saying
there
on
it
9/11
is.
that was the,
Oh,
yeah, it's 40,052.
Yes,
now.
sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So when we start looking at and then who's in the greatest danger of this ideology, it's Muslims.
Oh yes, and their children. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's sad.
You know,
it truly is sad.
What I think would be an interesting topic for us to analyze is the idea. I'm realizing more and more that Muslims themselves don't know their religion. They know what the Imam tells them, but us on this panel know more about Islam than most Muslims.
Well, I'll tell you what they don't know. What they don't know, George, is they don't know Christianity.
That's true. But they
have even. Well, when you hear these guys that are like Islamic apologists or polemicists against Christianity, and you listen to their arguments against the Christian faith, you're trying to you're wondering where they're getting these theological charges against Christianity. Are they getting it from like a coloring book, or where are these charges coming from?
Yes.
And complaints against Christianity, because they're so pathetically shallow.
Yes.
And then when you try to challenge, right, and when you answer them and you provide a coherent, logical answer for their objections, and then say, well, what about the Quran? The cry is always, well, you can't defend the Bible. I have put out there a challenge on Facebook for I don't know how long now, that I will debate any Muslim on if the Quran is from God or not. And I get all kinds of people that when I put it out there, and I put it in those groups that I belong to, when I put it out there, they'll say, yeah, but we're also going to say, is the Bible from God or not also? No. Because every time, did I say every time? I said every time, because every single time, not just part of the time, but every single time you go ahead and you bring up all of these problems with the Quran, like today we spent a long time talking about how anachronistic it is. When you bring those up, what do they want to do? They want to turn around and start making charges against the Bible, never providing any type of adequate defense of the Quran.
Right.
So if anybody's watching this, ever gets around to watching this, ever wants to debate that, you just let me know. And
I was having a discussion with a Muslim once, and I was telling him that the Quran cannot be from God because of the cruel things in there. So he says, like what? And I said, such as wife beating. Wife beating, he says. I said, yes, wife beating. This is a Muslim from Pakistan. He says, no, that's not in the Quran. And of course, I had to take him to Quran 434. My point is that this person grew up Muslim and did not know that Quran 434 existed. What that tells me is that they don't know their own book. They know what the Imam tells them to know, but they're not reading the Quran.
Yeah. Because they're in the fight with the imams. I mean, they're in whatever they say. They're in the battle. They're not in the book.
If you talk to Adam Seeker does a really good job of talking about how difficult it is to raise these objections with the imams because of the pushback that you get. You're questioning me. You're questioning my authority, and the structural system itself is pretty pathetic. But if you talk about things that are cruel in the Quran, what about crucifying people? That's 533. What about cutting the people's hands and feet off? 533. Yep. So when you start talking, is the God of the universe commanding somebody to be crucified for a crime, corruption that is not even he doesn't even spend any time defining? It's
right.
Pretty sad.
Yeah. To Islam, corruption is if you don't believe Allah and or Muhammad.
Exactly.
That's corruption in the land. Wow.
Yep.
So I'm going to turn. So I'm going to turn a Muslim, and I'm going to tell every man to turn Muslim so they can have a prepubescent wife like Muhammad and Aisha. You know, man, I would be in perversion telling men to take young girls as wives. You know, that's perversion in the land. That's corruption in the land.
Yeah,
that's why they won't define it, because it'll expose Islam, you know, perversion, you know.
Okay. Well, I think
even bestiality. Even bestiality is in there.
When Adam brings this stuff up, I just like.
That's all I'm going to say. I know.
I know.
I listen to your Hell's Bell so you can hear my Sharia that I expose, right? But yeah, it's even in there. And you know what? In that Sharia, the reliance of the traveler, they will not spell it out in English. They only have it in Arabic. And that one day, Usama told me this on the phone. Here, Connie, I'm going to read this to you, and I'm going to tell you what it says. So I made a picture of it. But yeah, even bestiality, dead animals or a dead woman, they can have sex with. Yeah, that is Sharia. So he's saying, so Kenny wants to say, well, the Sharia is already here, Connie. So where are you having sex with an animal, Kenny, or with a dead woman? Where?
Yeah, I have that.
That's perversion. That's corruption. Yeah,
here.
It's in there.
I can't find it. I know. I remember when Thomas does.
Dude, I swear, dude, I'm telling you the truth. There is so. If you are a male Muslim, okay, there is so, dude, and you step outside the bounds of what is considered legal sexual intercourse in Islam, you deserve to be stoned to death. Okay? Because seriously, you can have sex with pretty much anything, including dead women, animals, whatever. Okay? Your own daughter. Your own daughter. I mean, seriously. Multiple women, slave women. I mean, seriously, if you cannot gratiate yourself within the bounds of Islamic legal sexuality, and you're a male, then 9-year-old girls, I mean, twin sisters, I mean, seriously, dude. Okay, I don't think you can do twin sisters or sisters, but either, I don't know.
Mother-daughter.
Mother-daughter, I mean, dude, whatever perversion you can think of, if you have to step outside of the bounds of the legal limits of Islam, then you honestly deserve to be stoned to death, because you are truly, well, even if you do it in the bounds, even if you do all the sexual perversions in Islam, you are still a pervert. But if you have to, you are a pervert to the 10th degree. I mean, seriously, it is that obscene. Anyway, it's just weird, dude.
Yeah, I'm looking for that page number in here, and I can't.
It's 610, and it's section O, as in O 12.3.
Oh,
it's
here it
page
is. Right,
610. Yes, sir. On the bottom there.
What page it's on? Hold on. Look, Connie. It's on page 610. Yes, right? Yeah, it's on page 610.
Okay.
Yeah, I got it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sexual animal, dead women. Ooh, yeah. I don't even talk about the rest of it, but. Yeah, it's in Arabic. It's not even in English.
So did you write it in your book, English, what it says?
Yeah, well,
you did.
I did, but I don't want to get too descriptive. I mean, good night. This is supposed to be a holy book.
Maybe another show. But yeah,
well, we'd have to keep kids from coming, for crying out loud. Because it I don't even want to talk about what it talks about. So
that's
maybe one
the
show
thing.
where there's not kids, where we say, kids walk away.
That's the thing to talk about Islam. It has to be in an R-rated room, okay, X-rated room. I mean, seriously, they talk about, would you read the Song of Solomon or Ezekiel 23 to your daughter? Well, it depends on what age my daughter was. If she was a grown woman, absolutely. Or even a teenager, I would point her out that this is what idolatry does. This is what you become. Okay? But to a 4-year-old girl, obviously, I can read any part of the Quran to my 4-year-old girl. Really? You're going to read the part that all she can be is a tilth? How are you going to explain that one?
Right.
What does a tilth mean? That he can plow you? He can enter you from any way?
You can hookah on her. You can hookah on her. Yeah. Uses even the word the F word. Jeez.
I mean, yeah. And
so they lie again.
Stuff, and then this stuff. I mean, seriously. I mean, Eric, you were in the sandbox, so you've heard the stories about. Well, you've seen the videos of Apache helicopters catching on the infrared dudes, mountain donkeys and stuff, man.
Turning on fire, yeah.
Evidently, there's a lot of those videos, dude.
Go on when that desert sun goes down. Causes them to.
Eric, there are a couple points I wanted to make from the discussion last week about the young woman and stuff. But couple things. First of all, this idea that, and I don't think we addressed it properly, so that's why I want to talk about it now. This idea that once a female starts seeing her monthly, she is eligible to be married off. It's just garbage. Mm-hmm. And the reason why it's just garbage, just because she's seeing her monthly, doesn't mean that her birth canal is grown. She's still growing. The birth canal is wide enough to carry a baby. So the point I'm making, let me make this very clear. A young woman, a little girl can start seeing her monthly and not be able to carry a baby because the birth canal, she can't deliver that child. And this situation, CNN reported on this some time ago, where in Yemen, a lot of young girls were agonizing in childbirth. They can't deliver the child. It's 9 months. It's time to deliver, but the baby cannot come out, and they die in childbirth because of that.
This is why Connie has said that Islam is murder. When we look at it in this context, where you're absolutely right, George, where little girls are dying because they have not physically developed enough to bear a child, or in some cases they are not mature enough or not large enough to accommodate a grown man. What it's doing is that it's damaging and tearing the part of their internal organs, and killing them.
Right. And this may have actually happened to Aisha because she never had a child. She might have been torn up on the inside. Who's to tell? The next point, the next foolishness that I hear them with is, in desert, in hot climates, women mature much more quickly. Look, by my accent, you should be able to tell that I'm from somewhere south of the border. And I can
really? I thought you're Canadian.
There is no such thing. There is no such thing. The girls they don't ripen or mature faster because the climate is hot. It's garbage. Okay? So let's just dispel that other lie.
Let's just address that just for a second, because when you start looking at this claim, it should be able to be demonstrated then through anthropology. It's, looking at the ages of people who lived at the time, how long did it take them to develop. But the bottom line is that anthropology actually disproves this, and even a lot of the writings that we have from the past disprove this. Human beings will develop faster based on their diet. It has nothing to do with that hot sun and
medication.
Or medication, you're right. But if you have a diet that is high in protein, your body will, just like a cow. If you have a cow that eats, you ever hear corn-fed beef? It's very tender. It's very delicious. Why? Because the cow grows rapidly. Why? Because it has a very high, it has a diet in this corn. It's high in well, if you look at human beings, if you eat a diet that's high in protein, it's not uncommon to see girls mature and start menstruating when they're 9-10 years old. But that doesn't mean that they're physically capable of bearing children. But the second thing is that we know that people did not they did not mature as fast during this time period, because if you look at the boys' choirs in Europe that had a diet that was low in protein, many of those boys would continue to sing in these choirs all the way up to ages 18 and 19. And what that means is that their vocal cords, their bodies have not matured. They have not entered puberty to the point where their vocal cords have matured enough to where they won't be able to hit those very high notes that you hear in these choirs that they had assembled by using boys. So when you look at diet today is a great driver of how long it takes people to reach puberty, but also historically does not support what you just said. You're right. It's a bogus claim.
There's also stress and things like that. This is it's complete nonsense. The climate changes the way you physically develop. Dude, I'm gonna get kind of graphic here. I remember hearing about. This is a woman in Pal Talk. She was supposedly a medical doctor or a medical practitioner or whatever. She was Muslim, and she was defending female circumcision. And she said, this woman was ridiculous. And this is how I learned about this, honestly, because I didn't know what she was talking about. She said that some women will choose to do that because if they grow up in warmer climates, like in Arabia, they want that, shaved down just a little bit because it's too big. It grows too large. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about?
Rubbish.
No, I'm serious. I'm 100%
He's talking
serious.
about evolution. That's evolution.
Well, no.
And little girls have died because of this also.
Think about that. Well, yeah, think about this. You're shaving down the pleasure thing. You're taking a cheese grater to it or what? No. That's not. Anyway, she didn't even know this. Evidently, this is how. Dude, seriously, you gotta look at my YouTube search history because I honestly come up with some of the strangest things. Well, evidently, because she mentioned it, she said even in the West now they're having it done. Non-Muslim women are having it done. Well, evidently there was. I don't know if there still is. There is a fad, or maybe it's still going on, where young girls, instead of having breast implants, they were having what's called labiastectomy or something like that, where they actually trim the labia, okay, for some reason because they think it's too big. And that's what she was talking about. But that's not what female circumcision, but that's how stupid these people are. Look at Eric, he's like, oh my God, Rad's talking about this crap. I'm like, no.
Well, little girls are dying because of this as well.
Hold on.
So
what did you say, Issa? Hold on, Issa, what did you say? Issa, what did you say?
Oh, I apologize.
No, go ahead.
For one second, I think there's a lot of contention about this subject, but it is something that is debated, and it's like that is really strange. Like you would think there's no debate for this. You'd be like, no, you don't do that because you can really damage and hurt people by doing that. And why would you want to do that to your children?
And they've died.
Also,
some have died, Issa.
And also, I would say the male circumcision. Some people practice male circumcision at 7 to 13 years old. I think that's also not good. I think if you're going to do a male circumcision, do it around 8 days old. You can't do it at 7 to 13. That's like torture to a child. Like I could never do that to my child ever. Like I can't ethically do that. But some people believe that's right, and I think this is the problem. It's like you're going to have a debate because certain people read certain things, and then other people read other things, and then ultimately people are cherry picking what they want for their agenda. Like that's what I think. I think ISIS and Daesh cherry picks too. Would they follow the halal kashrut laws? Probably not. They would say, oh, in this situation, Christians and Jews, I can eat all their food. But, that if you really went into the scholarship, you'd be like, no, you'd actually have to have a certain particular slaughter that needs to be prepared. But I think this is just funny. People will cherry pick what they want for their agenda. And I think what you are fairly representing are bad agendas. These are human rights violations, in my opinion. So I think female circumcision, later male circumcision, all these things are human rights violations. You can't do this to your children. You know what I mean? So that's my.
Let me just read a couple things out of Reliance to the Traveler here. Number one, about the age of women This is found on page 576 when it starts talking about divorce. Divorce is the topic of the chapter. And it says, let's see, becoming unmarriageable by kin. So this is trying to identify women who you are not allowed to marry. And if you look on page 576, it says the milk comes from a female at least 9 years old, whether it is occasioned by sensual intercourse or something else. 9 years old.
Yeah.
9 years old. And it's right here in their doggone manual. Then
Sick.
guys were talking, it's more than sick. I mean,
You
when you
know,
codify
yeah.
it into law, that's more than sick. That's
Sure.
despicable.
Sure.
Then over here on page 59, it talks about female genital mutilation. Number E43, Division E, Chapter 4, Section 3. It says circumcision is obligatory for both men and women. For men, it consists of removing the prepuce from the penis, and for women, removing the prepuce of the clitoris, not the clitoris itself, as some mistakenly assert. Hannibales hold that circumcision of women is not obligatory, but sunnah. It's not obligatory. Woo, that's good news, but it's sunnah. You got to follow the prophet. It's pattern of conduct here. While Hanafis consider it a mere courtesy to the husband. My question is, how can that be a courtesy to a husband? If you have to cut that part of your body off in order to please your husband, you got a problem, and you need to get into some type of therapy and not put it in a law book.
Yeah, and this is another contradiction in Islam, because according to them, Allah is great and exalted, and He created people this way. So why do you need to modify Allah's perfect creation? That doesn't make sense to me.
Oh yeah, that's a great point. That is a great point.
Yeah, this is butchery. This is making Allah look like a butcher.
But
Butchery.
But hold on a second. The circumcision, you could say, well, God ordained circumcision for Abraham and as a sign. But hold on a second. It is supposed to be a sign, a covenant that God established between human beings and Himself. So this is a covenantal thing. But it doesn't say anything about females, does it?
No,
totally different organs, totally different types of skin. Totally, I mean, completely different. When they're talking about the female clitoris, because I had to look this up because of YouTube, because of Muslims. No, seriously, it would be like cutting the tip of the penis off. That's the equivalent.
Yeah.
Okay?
Once you take the skin off and then you clip it. Once you remove that skin, I would agree, and then you take that meat. That's what it means to take the tip of the clitoris off.
Yeah, that's what they're talking about. So they're removing the pleasure center. Okay, so that way their wives will not get any pleasure from sex, but the men can still have pleasure from sex, and therefore they know that they won't go out and cheat with them. That's why it's a courtesy. That's why it's a courtesy to husband, so she will be bonded to him, because it doesn't matter, because she's not going to go out and have you know what I mean? I mean, no, but what kind of husband would want that? I mean, you might as well.
Stupidity.
Yeah, it's like the same people that go out and rape women by drugging them, making them unconscious. You know what I mean? I mean, seriously. I mean, this is the type of level that these Muslim men have for women. That they really do. They are just a field, something to plow. Just something that they can. You know what I mean? It's disgusting. Look at Eric. He's like, oh my God, rats going on.
No. I'm just saying that I got to get going here. Mm-hmm. And I really hate to end on this. I really hate to hear.
No, you don't. You want to end it.
I just hate to end it on that note. I want to remind everybody what we did talk about, and that was the absence of history in Islam, and we can continue that on Tuesdays. You guys have any ideas of what that you want to talk about on Tuesday? Anything that comes to your mind right now?
Not really.
All right. Well, shoot me an email, shoot me a text, shoot me an instant message, and hopefully we'll be able to come up with a topic that's entertaining, but yet PG, at least PG.
It doesn't make your cheeks go red, Eric, because your cheeks go red.
I just hate talking. I mean, when Adam comes on and he starts talking about these things, and you're just like, how can a faith system be so perverse and perverse enough to the point where you have to put it in, you have to codify it, you have to put it into some type of law book, some type of rule book, and it's just for me, it's mind-boggling. You know, just a little boy that grew up on a farm in Iowa. You know, I don't know.
You know, we should do a Halloween show on bizarre Muslim sexual practices. You know, sex with dead women and animals and stuff. You know, I'm just saying.
And then
I think that'd be a good thing.
Right.
Yeah. I'll wear a top hat. I'll wear a top hat and, you know, a tuxedo. I will be your guide.
Halloween is on a Sunday this year.
Ooh.
That's evil.
You do that too well, Rad.
I know. I was just thinking that's like the ultimate voice.
I have practiced.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. Shoot me an IM if you come up with an idea for Tuesday. If not, I'm sure that I will. I have all kinds of things here that I want to drill down on. Thanks for spending your Sunday here. 3 hours.
Yay!
I need a break. All right, God bless you. Go to church tonight if your church has it. Worship God, the Creator, Jesus Christ, the Son. See you Tuesday.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen.